It's in the Roads and Street Department, which is on page 67. And yes, I do call it restricted for paving, but that's what it's always been called. So, and the rest of the items I detailed out on page 4 and through 8, I believe.
So we're not paving any streets this year.
No, but if there's, let's just say if we have what, $107,140, and if the parking lots, it costs us $80,000 to do that, we'll take the $27,000 and we'll encumber it at the end of next fiscal year and keep it as, as a reserve. And then next year we can
I'm just wondering why, if that was in the budget, why was it a decision module that we took that money and used it for decision module?
Because that's the way we normally work. I mean,
What I'm saying is, it was already in the budget when we had our first workshop
yes.
for street paving. Plus, we had a decision module. So now we've approved a decision module, and we're going back and taking the money from street paving to pay for it.
That was written on the decision module. I mean, we could have taken it out of reserves, but then you would be going up probably another tenth of a mil. We would have been at 5.9.
The paving of streets always is more than the funds you have under these restricted revenue streams to deal with it, unless you raise the millage. That's the only way to pave more streets.
I would like to have us reconsider the health insurance for commissioners. The way I look at that number, how much it will cost, is almost 0.2 of a mil. And unless I figured that wrong, merely math again.
Yeah, it's one tenth of a mil is like 80,000, and that's
Right,
60,
and this was
so
close
it's
to
about
2 times that.
About 2/3.
2/3 of the 10.
So I would like us to reconsider that, if people are willing. It was a 3-2 vote when we last looked at it. And I think if we can lower the mill rate by almost 2 points, just by not having that, no, it doesn't work that
No.
way.
I'll tell you right now. It would bring it down to probably, I think, 5.8. I could calculate it while you're talking. I'll do that.
Because the way I look at it, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, if it's,
So it's $61,000. A tenth of a mil is,
I thought it was 106.
No,
No.
It's 61,000 was the ad.
right, it was originally 64, and
Oh,
then
it's
once
61, I read it.
then
Yeah.
we got the reduction.
Yeah, then we have a new health care plan, so it brought it down a little bit.
All right.
Yeah, it was
So it's still
64.
2/3 of a mil, right?
Yeah.
Right.
2/3 of a tenth,
And that's
I
only
would say
max
that-
if everyone takes it, correct?
correct.
But
That's
you
the
have
only
to
way
budget
we-
for everybody.
That's the
Right.
only way we could budget for
Sure.
it, was to say, okay, if everybody took it, this is the number.
Well, it's more than we get paid. So it's more than doubled what it costs for the commission to operate.
So I just recalculated the mill rate. Without that, the mill rate would be 5.5 even. So it takes off 0.85.
I don't know. We don't pay for anybody else's health insurance. It's part-time, and I don't think we should be any different. I personally, there's at least 3 of us up here that are using welfare and probably a supplemental insurance company to go along with it.
They were on welfare.
You said welfare?
Oh, did I say welfare? Yeah.
You did.
Oh, I can see that in the paper now.
Well, let me correct that.
You meant Medicare.
With the supplemental, insurance to go along with it. And I don't know about the others, but I pay about $1,700 a year for the Medicare, and then the supplementals, no cost. And it's way better insurance than what we're talking about getting, so.
But we would have to budget it for everybody because the next commission could be people who aren't on welfare.
And that's why that's why I supported it, because, not everyone that gets on the board is going to be as old as we are. And not everyone that possibly gets on the board is going to have health insurance. So I think we don't get paid that much. We get $500 a month or whatever it is by the time they clear taxes. So I'm thinking down the road. I'm thinking about others other than ourselves. That's where I am. Because not all of us are always going to be on this board. So, we have younger folks that could conceivably be, putting themselves in a position to be on this board as well. They may not have insurance. So I'm not thinking about myself. I don't necessarily have to take it out, but I'm just thinking about others. That's just my position.
And I agree with the
Yeah.
position. I just don't think, I said this last time, I don't think people should take this, run for this position with, oh goody, I can get health insurance.
I don't think anyone's going to run for this position to get health insurance. I don't see that. I really don't. If they're going to run for a position to get health insurance, they're going to run for a county position where you have a full-time salary of $70,000 or $80,000 a year plus full benefits. But I don't know. It's just my position. I just always look beyond where we are and beyond me not being on the board and possibly someone that's 25 or 30 years old. And I hope someone does actually consider in that age group to be on this particular board. That's what we need, some younger folks.
What page, without having to flip, you broke down the health insurance really nicely. I can't, without flipping on a ton of pages.
Okay, yeah, the health insurance is spread throughout the budget because it is impacted by taken by a lot of
Okay.
employees. So it's not lumped into one spot.
I thought I saw
But it is under every line item, under the just below salaries.
Okay.
So,
Now, we spend $53,400 on the salaries, and we're going to spend, well, I guess we're not going to spend, but it's still discriminatory to the people that don't use it. My mind. But it's don't have the votes, don't have the votes.
We experience the same type of savings if we have employees that don't partake in our insurance, but we can't budget that way because if that employee leaves and we have to get somebody else. But what happens is that money is returned to the fund balance at the end of the year.
Well, if we're looking at decision modules, Kathleen, I have the vote sheet here. Can you just real fast go through the ones that are impacted on by general fund or that impact general fund? Because there's a bunch of these that are CRA, there's some reserve, there's some enterprise stuff. So can we should probably just look at these decision modules that have an impact on that, so we can look at potential cuts.
So the new roof for the police department, that's going to come from reserves, unrestricted general fund dollars.
so it doesn't affect the millage
So it
rate.
doesn't affect the millage rate. Additional police officer, that does affect the millage rate. Oh,
It's on.
it's on. All right. So again, the roof at the police department will come out of reserves. It's a capital project. Additional police officer, that would come from ad valorem tax or general fund revenues. adjust salaries ranges for minimum wage increases, and we were spreading that over 3 years. That comes out of general fund ad valorem dollars. New fire truck, that was 100% coming, well, not 100%, 85, 90, 95% of it is coming from the infrastructure surtax, which is the tax that's imposed on, with sales tax. So when you buy something for $1, it costs you $1.07. 1 cent of that comes back to Flagler County. Half of that goes to the school board, and then the other half is distributed by population from the county. So that's
So we get like nothing.
right. Well, we in infrastructure surtax, we bring in about 220. We've been up higher. Last year was real bad, of course.
Depends on the economy, it goes
Sure.
up and down, but it's around 220,000.
But yeah, we budgeted at 220,000 this year. Provide health insurance to elected officials, that would come out of ad valorem. Accelerate street lighting program for the bridge lights. So that we made the FDOT money into a reserve that we receive from FDOT every year for maintaining the lights. This year we spent, I believe, $25,000 or so. So we had about $30,000 in the reserve. Then we're going to get $60,000 in this year's, in the budget that we're working on. And the other $30,000 would come from general fund revenues, like ad valorem tax, but we could kind of do a loan out from the next year and pay back the general fund. If that sounds right to you. You understand it's kind of like we're going in the hole in that reserve to do this, but in the 22, 23, I'll take the $30,000 back.
That's not ad valorem.
That's not ad valorem. Decorative lighting in CRA is going to come out of CRA dollars. Creation of a volunteer coordinator position, that was the position Mr. Whitson eliminated. Installation of telemetry system, that is from utility fund.
Not ad valorem.
Non-ad valorem, that's with utility fund, utility bill revenues. Purchase glass processing machine, and we were going to add a surcharge for recycling, and that's all out of the sanitation fund. Add full-time code enforcement officer and eliminate the part-time position. That's in the general fund under code, under planning and zoning, and that would come from ad valorem dollars.
I thought that's not enterprise?
No, that's that department. So the building department, you have like Larry Torino, Lee Richards, who helps out on plan reviews.
There's like 3 funding sources for that department. One is general fund, the other is building fund, and the other is the stormwater fund. So there's 3 places that money moves from to fund that operation.
But the code enforcement officer
That's
is
general fund.
all general fund. The planner is all general fund. The customer service for LBTRs is all general fund. The rest, anything to do with permitting, is in the building code inspection fund. Pave parking lots at maintenance and public works building, utilize local option fuel tax. We went through that one. Fund the CRA director position, that would be CRA dollars. Create a groundskeeping team for city landscaping maintenance. What we did with that one is we just kind of mimicked the same way our contract was, where we were paying 40% out of the CRA and 60% out of general fund.
So we reduced that funding of that contract and shifted those funds over to creating the new crew.
Yeah, I had a breakdown, but
What was the total of that? Was it about $200,000 for the?
It was 220, but
Yeah,
then
it's
you've got some timing issues to
Right.
work out. So, yeah, roughly around 200,000.
But the net increase was very small.
Correct.
Right.
That's
right.
correct.
Yeah,
Because
Because we're already paying a contract now.
right.
And then we kill a contract, if I remember right, going back to the last workshop, it was like 25 or 30,000.
Correct.
It wasn't much, and then we have control over the whole operation.
Right.
So it's about a 10% increase roughly.
We have some mowers and equipment to purchase, too. Is that
Yeah,
a figure? Is that in
some of
that
the
figure?
smaller
There was a
equipment
list.
is in that.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons that we have to have a little extra bump, because you can't just eliminate the contract and roll the money over. It's not an even wash because of that.
And that would not come out of CRA?
Just a percentage of it would be, because again, the equipment has to be used in the CRA to be funded by the CRA.
We would have that typical split.
60/40
Yeah, we
is
did
roughly.
split the whole entire thing. I did work it up here.
Yeah, we had a whole page of all the stuff you have to buy.
So this is typically, what that is generally replacing or bringing back what used to be the Parks and Recreation Department that took care of all of that, right?
Correct.
Okay, here, I knew I had the number somewhere. Hold on one second. So the whole thing was, it worked out when I did the calculations, is about $190,000 for salaries and benefits, and then we put $17,000 for operating supplies. So the maintenance department, the cost for maintenance in the general fund is $126,000, and in the CRA, it's $80,000.
And what's our difference? Like the total net difference?
The total net difference, I
Yeah.
don't know, I did not calculate that
It
one.
was listed in the decision module.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, and then I tweaked it up a little bit by the ad that I just put on the dais this morning, because the way we want to work this is the maintenance crew will take care of, the mowing and picking up the trash and all of that kind of normal maintenance. But there are going to be occasions where you have to trim palm trees and things like that. We want to get contractors with special equipment to do those kinds of things. So we have to have a little bit of contract support for that. And then the crews can do the normal kind of work. It's not, this kind of follows the model that I did in Panama City, where all the specialty type work was contracted out, but the regular work was done by the crew.
And even when we had Vertigo, like some of those extra little landscaping things that we did, those were tens of thousands of dollars, some of them,
Because it wasn't part of the
Because it's
contract.
not part of their contract.
Well, in your module, you have a $25,000 over contract services number, and then what did you add today to it?
So that's what I'm pulling up for you. I'm trying to
We
get
added
to
15.
the actual current. Yeah, it was we were paying $178,000 to Vertigo, and now we're paying $206 for a department, so that's,
But that's including the buying of the
28,000
equipment.
plus the 15 that just got added, so
Yeah, it includes the equipment, the
28.
difference
next
between
year we won't have to
206
buy the
That's
equipment
right,
again.
Exactly, it's just a one-time cost there, yes.
So what's our true net difference?
I'm getting
The
it.
difference between.
One of the other things that Mr. Whitson and I discussed yesterday is the fact that with these additional positions, because during the winter, you normally wouldn't have some of these same individuals out mowing lawns and these kinds of things here, they would more or less be on a generalist type of a position description where they could actually be used in the maintenance department as well. So, again, one of the departments that I was in charge of, actually I classified positions, it was called Building and Grounds, which covered a lot of what we have here, it's just called something different. So that's the discussion we had to see the advantages of having our own staff and also being able to direct them where we need maintenance and things, maintenance and grass cutting or whatever within the city itself. I think we all can agree that over the years, a lot of this has been neglected. And I think, again, in the workshop, we all identified, in the strategic planning, that this is something we really needed to get back on in order to address the issues.
Agreed.
That's how I
Then get our
remember it.
parks cleaned up.
Well, not just for parks, we need to have a lot of these right-of-ways cut back in the city, and that's something they can do in the winter months.
Right.
When they're not cutting so much grass. So you can pull up to a stop sign, pull out safely and not cut somebody off. So,
Right.
that's,
But I do want to know what it's actually costing.
I've got your
Oh, sure.
answer, Commissioner Cooley. So when we added in the $15,000 that we put in for some extra equipment and extra types of landscaping, so the total cost of the whole thing is $221,000, and that is $43,000 over the contract that we had. And when you split that 60-40, it's a $26,000 increase to the general fund.
So it's right about what we thought it would be.
About what we thought it would be.
Small
But
price to
we're
pay for
talking
that.
about four full-time workers working 40-hour weeks, correct? So they should be able to get some things done. Because Vertigo doesn't spend the whole day here, much less 5 days.
No, in fact, I had to run them down the other day to get a citizen complaint addressed about, branches that were hanging over the right-of-way down at Palm Drive.
So,
Okay, so we got 2 other items that we were looking at. As
So
far as-
I'm sorry, we would hire people who are able to do maintenance types of jobs as well, so that in the winter, when they're not mowing all the time.
Yes, we're going to call it the Building and Maintenance Department. It would be under Bill Clemens. That's where the department would be housed in the reorganization, and that's where the positions would be. And that way, in the wintertime, they could do other things. And then when you had, seasonal growth, and which is most of the year, around here, they would be out doing those kinds of things.
Okay.
And we can still coordinate volunteers.
You're going to get that in there somewhere?
But I'm not fishing.
And then the last 2 items, there's the creation of the administrative assistant.
And the newsletter, that kind of was a duo decision module, and both were approved, but Mr. Whitson reduced the amount for the newsletter down to $25,000.
And those are both to go along with your question, they're pro general fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both general fund. Had to do some trimming somewhere.
Commissioner Bellinger?
So how do you want to do this? You want to run through these again, just finalize a vote on it, or you want to have discussion on anything that people have thoughts on? And how do you want to go through this?
Well, we can go through them one by one. Commissioner Mealy first posed the health insurance for elected officials. I can tell you that, just myself, I'd like to see us at last year's mill rate without an increase, and I'll tell you why, because property values are going up by 9%. And then if you back out inflation at 4.5%, 5%, whatever it was, you're still at a 5% increase in funds coming in.
Excuse me, Commissioner, I just wanted to say that the taxable value increase from last year was 6.77%.
I thought I just saw 8.8 on one of your sheets here.
Well, on my sheet that's right here that I just produced is 6.77%. That's the increase.
Well, he's talking about this figure here.
Oh, okay. So that is the market value. So what I was trying to put forth in those facts is that, this is I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this particular home that I chose had an 8%, almost a 9% increase to the market value, but the taxable value only went up 1.38% because it's homesteaded. Now, we all know that everybody's house is different, and everybody's got different types of exemptions, but if you just focus on the taxable value of your property, and this one being homestead, it was only a 1.38%. The increase to the mill rate from last year, this mill rate is 5.37%. So basically, the taxable value on this piece of property is only going up $5,500, while the market value, which is according to the property tax appraisers, we all know that that might be a little bit low in our city.
Hopefully.
So, but even on there, they're saying it's a 9% increase. So your property value is going up. Your taxable value is not increasing that much. The 6.77% comes from all the different parcels in the city, commercial and everything lumped together as one value. That was the increase from last year's values.
So the number of 9% that keeps getting put out in the press and when county was working their budget of property values going up does not apply here?
Well, when I compared them, I just went with the exact numbers that we have. And we also have a piece of Volusia County. Remember that we're multi-county, so I took the certified numbers from last year, which is what, and then I took the actual numbers that they gave us this year and did the math, and that was the number I came out with.
Okay.
Yeah, what's happening is you have all kinds of people buying and selling, so the economy's hot when it comes to real estate, and that property, that value is rising quite a bit, but the actual tax rate or the property assessment rate isn't rising as fast. So there's what's going on in the economy, and then there's the assessment of property values, which isn't rising as fast as the commercial rate.
Commissioner Bellinger, you had something?
Yeah, I'm looking at the general fund revenues from our first workshop. And and that was done at 5.3486, correct?
Yes.
So your chart shows ad valorem tax revenue at 4.11 million. And projected activity from this year is 3.8. So it's $359,000 increase. And you even have at the end of that column, 9.58%. And that's in your revenue column of your
Okay, so that, you're talking about looking at the actual page, and that is, right, and the raw numbers, we budget at 95%. There's a lot of moving pieces that make it change. Also, the number, it's the certified numbers that I'll have next year when I do this are usually a little different than what we get to work with, and that's what changes also the money that we bring in. We generally bring in, even though we budget at 95%, we generally bring in 99% of what is taxed. So that's some of the reasons, because that number, I believe, is comparing the actual collections. But those are some of the reasons why things like, percentages are what they are. It depends on what you're comparing.
Sorry, Eric.
Oh, no, you're fine. Well, and the only reason why I brought that up, I just covered my rationale just to give you all an idea of, if we want to work these modules, like for instance, Jane proposed that. I had a couple other ideas on things to propose that we can talk about. Y'all want to go through them one by one?
Sure.
Because it would be good to
I have a couple of ideas.
see how far down we can get this. What did you have?
I have a couple of points I want to bring up
Okay.
as we go.
Well, we'll just cover the ad valorem things.
Right.
So we have, first thing, additional police
Back
officers.
to the decision modules?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll just run through them real quick. So we have additional police officer. Do we have any?
No, first we have a roof. Oh, that's from reserves, never mind.
Right,
Okay.
roof is from reserves.
Right, sorry.
Still like to talk about that before we're done.
Okay,
So
I'm all for it.
the police officer?
Mhm.
Yes, so am I.
I personally would not want to see that go
No,
down.
he was nice enough to leave it unfunded last year.
It's-
to help
it's
The year
strike
before
it
and the
through,
year
so
before, we've been
I think
not
about it.
funding that police officer for years.
Yeah, what was it, since 2005, chief? Was that the number the last time you had
Correct.
another officer?
There's been no net increase in police department staffing since 2005.
Well, thank you for not being like Sheriff Staley and asking for a whole bunch of them. so.
Yeah, next year chief's gonna want 23 people. Okay, so do we have a consensus on, everybody still okay with that?
I'm
Yep.
still good.
Okay, next one is adjust salary ranges for minimum wage. That one I don't see us getting out
That'll
of.
do it. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one that's ad valorem is provide health insurance to elected officials. And Jane, you are not for that.
I am not.
Rick, you are not for that.
I'm not for it.
Ken, I heard you were for that?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Phillips is for it. I'm for it, but I'd be willing to let it go if it can get us to a more desirable number.
So we let that hang out?
Well, yeah,
Well-
we'll just kind of leave that as pending. Because if it's not going to get us anywhere, then it might as well just stay. If it can get us somewhere, then I'm willing to let that go.
That's fine, we can talk about it.
Yeah, it's, like minimum wage, stuff like that, those are must-haves. Volunteer coordinator, that was ad valorem, but our city manager let that one go. So we have the addition of full-time code enforcement officer from the existing part-time.
That was a very high priority on our strategic session.
I'm very
I think
much
it needs
for
to
that.
stay.
I think that needs to stay.
Me too.
And it's not a whole lot
No.
of difference. We're talking about $18,000
Right.
difference.
Right.
Oh, and hold on, I slighted our mayor. Mayor, your thoughts on the health insurance? You were so quiet over there. I know you're not a voting person, but your feedback matters.
I'm fine. I'm more concerned about that full-time code enforcer.
What do you mean by you're fine with
Oh, I'm
health
good. Yeah, I'm
insurance?
fine. I'm good.
What does that mean?
I'm good
You're
with
for it or against it?
I'd save the funds. We can move on.
Okay, so if it gets us somewhere, you're okay with
That's
that?
right.
Okay. And Commissioner Phillips, you were for Commissioner Phillips?
But we'll wait till the end,
Okay.
see if it can get us somewhere.
And I'm kind of the same thought process as you are. It is a priority. Our part-time position does a pretty darn good job, and I don't know if that's something that we would have to do this year, but again, that's not a ton of money.
Let me ask a question.
Commissioner?
I know that I keep bringing up the fact that we have so many people that are doing short-term rentals who shouldn't be. If we get a full-time code enforcement officer, could that person spend some time every week looking online for ads or however you find the people that are doing it illegally? And would we not then get some income from that as fines or?
Yes, we think that we will pick up some revenues there. We also have other people in the office that do that as well, so it would be kind of a team effort. But yes, they would have more time to do that, and of course, I'll run down all the other complaints we get.
Does somebody do that today? Do they look to
Yes.
see if violations
Yes,
occur? Okay.
but it just doesn't,
Not a lot.
yeah, I
Don't
mean,
spend a
they
lot
do it as they can
They
in
do it as they
between
can.
things, yeah.
Okay.
And they generally too, it's to get them to comply, not necessarily to collect fines. So usually what they'll do is they'll say, okay, it's noted, and if any future infractions would then be fined, but they don't necessarily always fine the first one, and they give them so much time to comply, and it's very hard to prove. And so it depends on who your magistrate is, really. It really does. I've seen it come and go, so.
All right, but even if people know that somebody's out there looking.
I just heard you mention collect some fines.
Yeah, well, I
didn't
just
want
thought
you to
as a
base
mo-
your decision off that, because it's
No.
not like.
No, I feel like an idiot that we spend all this time creating the short-term rental ordinance, and then we don't really have a way of enforcing it.
Well, to Jane's point, presence is a very good deterrent for a lot of things. So that would not only include short-term rentals, but for other dumb things people do that might think somebody's watching them.
And Kathleen, just for money's sake, the the number for the health insurance, that was 60 something?
61,
61.
260.
Okay, so we got 61K on that. And what was our dollar amount on that full-time to part-time code enforcement
18.
position?
18,630.
All right. Gives us an idea where we're at. And then we have another impact to ad valorem is the landscaping folks, which is about a $25,000 impact. And from what I heard from everybody on the previous discussion, it sounds like we're on a consensus on that.
I had a question about that.
Commissioner Bellhumeur?
Is there a way we could get away with having 3 people as opposed to 4? I mean, you're talking about somebody that's, 40
Yeah, I
hours a
mean,
week?
we could get by with it, but again, the whole point is to try to get ahead of it. So if you guys won't complain, we could try it and see how it worked, but I would think that we probably eventually need to add.
It would be easy enough to add another one in next year, right?
Absolutely, we could do that, do it
If we
that
had
way.
to.
As long as
So that'd be a way to save a
y'all
couple
help me
bucks.
remember.
Or
But-
worst case, add one mid-year if we had to.
Well, you go out and you see a lot of these landscaping crews, that's typically about the size they are, so 3 people. And it's a small city, they're not gonna have a whole lot of equipment for $17,000, so they might be fighting over the stuff that you use to work. I don't know, it's just a thought. If they're out there all day, every day, I think,
I'm not opposed to
There's no
trying
way they
it.
can't
I
keep
just
talking.
want to, make sure y'all remember that we were starting at 4, and, if we have to add it, we would have to come back to you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Brown?
Again, in line with that, I'm going back to the comments I made before. Bringing these individuals on a generalist type position, and many of the positions that I wrote had other duties as performed, which could also blend over into their maintenance department. I mean, I don't see any reason why there's so many individuals that's working in the maintenance departments when they're not completely busy, could also perform some of the jobs that we're talking about in the grounds.
Yes, you're right, but it's seasonal. And
I understand
they
that.
do check
Yeah.
the dune walkovers every day. That's part of the things that they do as well, so.
I'm not talking about working everybody to death, but I mean, just maximizing the workforce that we have.
Well, guys working all day, every day can trim a lot of trees back.
Yeah, I agree.
So we have 4 positions for this decision module, and you're talking about maybe eliminating one would be what, 25 or 30,000?
Well, to the general fund, because remember, it's 60%,
Right.
it would be 21,600.
21,000.
So I'm keeping a tally on what you are talking about possibly cutting.
So we're close to 100K right now with that.
So it
I
would,
heard 61,400 for insurance, and then a parks person at 21,600. We're at 83,000.
Okay.
That's a tenth of a mil.
well, when you say 21.6, is that going down from the 25 that we were at, or?
Yeah.
The
The-
cost, no, what I'm saying is, one position costs $36,000 with benefits.
Mhm.
And we're budgeting 60% of that person in the general fund. So 60% of 36,000 is 21,600.
That would make us much more equal to what we were paying Vertigo anyway.
Right, so really, it would only go up about 4,000 versus contract
Right.
in true net.
Roughly.
Right.
Okay, versus the original, it would go up 25,000 in true net versus the contract.
So
Okay.
we're looking at 61.
We're at
whatever,
83,000 right now.
61 for the insurance.
61, I'm sorry, it's 61,400
Okay.
and 21,600.
And that's for the landscape.
Right. One part.
Reducing one
Down to 3 people.
one less.
Which if we find we're behind,
Okay.
they can always make a change, so that's not a substantial change. However, Commissioner Bellhumeur, when I look around the city, I see with 4 people working in the grounds department, I see about 5 years of work to do to get this place right. Because we're so far behind with the alleys and the parks, and it's just,
I get that, and
And the other side of the bridge.
right.
it's gonna be a marathon no matter. But keep in mind how often vertigo is here. And,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
all
I
things
think
are
we could
tipped
try
up.
it with
So if
3.
you got somebody working, a crew working all day, every day, except for rain and stuff, but I think they could make an impact.
Okay.
That was a good point, Rick.
Okay, the next item we have is create administrative assistant to the city manager position. Do we have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, what? Just
No, I wouldn't
take one of the
dare-
grounds guys and have him do that part-time?
Wouldn't
Only
dare
on
take
rainy
that
days.
away from him. He needs, I think it'd be to everybody's advantage for William to have all the help he
Absolutely.
can get.
Okay.
Because he's got a mind that isn't slowing down, and he's got a lot of things to keep track of.
Commissioner Bryan, Mayor Johnston, any thoughts?
My only thought is the cost of the position is, to me, that seems a little bit salary heavy. I'm not sure if, your thoughts on that?
What is our cost of position?
Well, it's
77,412.
including all the
That includes all the health
Okay.
insurance.
It's like a $15 an hour. I had those.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 50,300 as
Okay.
a salary.
perfect.
Yeah,
That's straight off the
to get a
salary,
quality person. it's- I think
That's
it's a
more in
fair
line, I was
It's
salary.
actually on the light side, but we'll see what we can do.
No, you gotta have somebody that you can depend on.
And then did I hear you say, you cut the cost for the publication? Can we take a look at that?
Yes, I've trimmed it back from what it was originally proposed.
And I was going to ask that too, what's the difference between what it was and the 25?
Sorry.
The decision module for the publication.
Yeah, what will you be doing differently?
My thought was that it would just wait to start it. That would be one way to trim it back. The other is to cut the size of it. And the other way is to go all electronic. And that was what the debate was, the cost of the paper versus the electronic. And how do you do that? And so basically my thoughts were that we could go more electronic, heavier on the electronic, and the blast type communications, and then just less of any kind of written publication.
Okay, well, hold on. Mayor changed our subject. We were still on the admin position. Do we have a consensus on that? Is there any other thoughts on
I just
that?
wanted a little bit more discussion. And I know it's a position that's needed, so in your absence, is that something that the individual would also be responsible for? It's like your assistant or the deputy or what? I mean,
It wouldn't be a deputy, it would be like an assistant too, whereas if I have a list of projects that need to be done, they will be following up on those things. There's also, say we get a grant going, I need somebody to keep track of where we are with that kind of thing. Any kind of communications that go out of the manager's office, all the coordination that would go with that.
it's like project management type of stuff as well?
Yes, and then there's just the scheduling. I had a gentleman before this meeting come up and ask me for 30 minutes of my time. Well, I said I'd be happy to give it to you if I could find it. So, you would not believe the amount of time, Liz, with just keeping my calendar. And the thought was, if I could have somebody doing that, then that frees Liz back up to do risk management and other things that need to be done, HR work that is just frankly not getting done right now because she's tied up doing other things.
Okay. I mean, I kind of understand, but I think for the general public, I think it's prudent to explain the kinds of things that position is going to entail. Because, you get all kinds of discussions as to, well, what is an administrative, an assistant to the chief going to do? So that's why I want a little bit more clarity as to what it's.
The good question is the second in command still McFadden?
He's the person that I kind of look to along with Penny
If you took a
because
week
they've been,
vacation, then who would be in charge?
Penny.
yeah,
Be the first time.
yeah. McFadden and Penny are, you know, I basically would designate them and it would be for short periods of time.
No, okay.
Sorry, Penny, I just had to throw that out there.
So I have a question. So this administrative assistant would also work on creating the newsletter, correct?
Yes, they would work with me and Matt to do that, yes.
Okay. That
One
person's already very
question.
busy.
Can this assistant be a part-time position? Is it possible to do that?
No,
Boy, did that come out quick.
absolutely
Yeah.
not. There's just no way that a person could work part-time and do, what we're talking about is keeping my schedule, coordinating that, working on publications and PR efforts, tracking and managing grants, and all the other stuff that happens to come up and you know, on a day-to-day basis. It just is too much for a person part-time, in my opinion.
This is something we've been talking about for years.
Yes, we have.
You know, Larry wanted one and had all kinds of very valid reasons.
No, we wanted Larry to have one. He wouldn't take it.
Well, that's
It's
true.
kind of how it went.
We had it
We knew he
budgeted,
could
too.
get more done if he had help, so.
Now, at one time, it was budgeted in there, too.
Yeah.
It
And we
was,
just
but he never hired anybody. I think William will, though.
Well, a lot of it has to
Pennies.
do with having the staff that you can delegate to and knowing that it's going to be followed up.
Bingo.
You know, and
If I don't have somebody I can trust to do these things, then I might as well not have that conversation and do it myself.
If he gets somebody to do 1 or 2 grants and keeps track of that, they'll easily pay their salary.
Okay, well, let me
Right,
ask,
we didn't have the right person. You went through that where
Oh, yeah.
Kathleen needed an assistant. She hired somebody, it didn't work out. So Kathleen said, I might as well just do it all myself.
Yeah,
Well-
but now the times have changed.
And she
I
changed her
hired
mind
someone
again.
to be
Yeah, I know.
a great one, yeah. This is going to make a big difference to some of the things. And also,
Good.
even getting Mr. Whitson an assistant will take some of the things that I struggle with on top of trying to do finance, because I'm always trying to track down the grants and all the grant information and all that sort of, I mean, we all do little pieces of things that this one person could do and do a lot better. Because, you know, we all have other jobs. And I know in a small city, we all wear hats, but with, you know, I see the changes that are happening here in the 16 years that I've worked at the city. We were doing an awful lot more than we used to.
Oh, yeah.
If we did one project a year, that was a lot. So, yeah, it's, you know, and you have a city manager that's aggressive, that's going out after grants, going out after things. So that's just my 2 cents. Sorry for getting off.
No,
Okay,
no.
so-
I brought it up for you.
Yeah, you did.
let me ask another question. Can a CRA director function as a administrative assistant?
Not legally. Their responsibility has to be focused on the CRA if their salary is being paid by the CRA. Now, certainly you could split it, but again, that begins to get into gray areas that are, you know, kind of touchy with the state.
Not desirable.
No.
Okay, so commissioners, where are we at on thoughts as far as the admin position?
I'm in 100% favor of an admin position.
Me too.
I wouldn't dare say no. I told the man before he even started, I told him up front, I said, he had a list of things he wanted to do, and one of them, or no, missing position, empty positions, and I reminded him that was one that was in
Okay.
existence, so.
All right, Commissioner Brown? Okay, so we have a consensus on that. So now we're back to the publication.
35.
All right, so I have a question about doing it electronically. We're kind of disenfranchising some of our residents. Is there a way, do we know how many people get our notices electronically now? You know, the meeting agendas and
I can let you know in about 5 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
that'd be good.
so maybe if the people that sign up to get their agendas and city information by email, I'd be fine with them getting it electronically.
Yeah, if it's a large percentage.
Even including it with the water bill doesn't even work because the people in the big buildings, there's only
Right.
one water bill for the
Only
whole
one water
building.
bill.
That's true.
So I think it needs to be mailed, snail mail or whatever, to the other people. And to say that we can hang it out here, that doesn't work. Or even in the
Yeah,
library.
the original amount was 35,000. That was just a rough guess, just
Right.
starting, and then I cut it to 25. So that's how the reduction was made.
Well, you kind of had a pretty, almost a little newspaper as an example. So if we could just print out a one-sheet, two-sided one-sheet summary every few months and put a few out here and there on top of it, that couldn't be too crazy costly, right? Because I think
Yeah,
there's
that
still a
was
lot of
basically
people
the idea
that
was
walk
that,
their utility bills here every month. And even if they didn't see it in their utility bill, they'd see it when they walked into the lobby, so.
What about the people who mail in their water bill?
How about if you provide it electronically, and then anyone that wants it by mail could send in a request, just like your bank or any other institution?
that was kind of the approach we were going to take, was we're going to do less to be able to save the amount of money we
Can I ask Steve
reduced,
Cox a question?
and then, electronic for the rest.
Steve, you would, if you could come up, so you're on the, sorry. The fire department was doing a newsletter. Do you have any idea how many people were reading it? It was only online.
I do not have a confirmed number for
Okay.
that.
I just wondered if
You
there
do
was.
have a code red list though, right?
We do. We have a code red list, and I'd have to go into the system and formulate the data, but I could give you the numbers if it was needed.
Okay, and just, I thought if you happen to know, that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have 514 who subscribe to get the commission agendas, things like that, and 285 people who are subscribed just in the main news flash to receive those messages.
So that's like 800 people.
That's a low number.
Yeah,
I also remember our
Thank you, Penny.
strategic planning, this being a very high priority amongst us, is trying to get the news out to people in a little better way than, that's been a complaint for some time.
oh, I think
now,
it's
so.
important, I just don't want to say
Yeah.
we're doing it,
Well,
we're
we
not
don't
getting the
basically spin
people.
our wheels doing it, I get it.
Just a quick update from Matt, the Facebook followers right now, he has 10,200.
Yeah, they probably live in Washington and California and.
Well, I will give you all my thoughts. As far as a reduced number, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. I wouldn't fund it at all this year, and I'll tell you why. I think these new directors, these like the admins, the directors and all that can come up with something and propose it for next year. To do a low number, potentially half-baked, it's not going to do it justice, and it will not be a success out the gate to begin with. I think that these folks that we're talking about hiring need to come up with something and have it be solid and pitch it next year, and I wouldn't fund it at all.
Penny has.
Just Kathleen, I think maybe a more way to reach more people to think about it would be through utility billing. And we have people who subscribe electronically to that
That's
as
why
well.
you read my
So
mind. I was
how many
just
people
asking.
get electronic
That's
versus
why
a paper?
I just sent an email to Maria to ask her. Off the top of my head, I want to say probably 40% of the 3,000 bills.
Yeah.
But I'll get it. Yeah, our
So we can give
email.
you that split in terms of electronic versus hard copy for bills? And we have 3,000?
That way you'd hit your tenants as well, not just your property owners.
Mm-hmm.
And the gross number's around 3,000?
Yeah, we send out about 3,500 bills.
3,500.
But what you wouldn't hit is your condos.
Right, the
You have
condos that have one bill.
Single meter.
And that would be an easy fix. The condo association receives the bill, and then they have mass email communication that they could put that newsletter or whatever was decided
It would
out
be
to the masses.
Relying on them to do it, yes.
Yeah, I think that's the best barometer that we have besides Code Red in terms of what's actually numbers-wise out there.
Well, it's some code red is the phone, and some code red is email,
Right.
text. I think Ken had hit it where people could, like you said with your bank statement, you could, somehow we could get it out there that we're going to be doing this, and if you want it by email, you can get it by email, and both the women's groups I belong to do it that way. The majority get it by email, and the rest.
And I just think word of mouth as well. Once people know that this is coming, there's something they're going to look forward to. I think it's a great idea. Our residents talk all the time about the lack of communication we have with them, and I don't see why this isn't something we should at least try.
I agree.
Debbie, I'm just going to ask for clarification. Are you saying try it in the print form or just the electronic form?
Definitely electronic form.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all about electronic.
Okay.
I think, obviously there are individuals that, need hard copy.
We could run
But the
some
ex-
copies off and keep
Yeah.
them at the library or.
Good idea. Here they can just pick it up.
Provide them to someone if they-
Okay, instead of mailing it.
So we're talking about how often, quarterly, or?
Well, that was the first workshop you decided on.
Quarterly. I thought monthly would be too much.
Yeah, that's too often.
I think we need to, I agree, that was one of our strategic planning initiatives, and I think it is important to communicate with,
Absolutely.
With their residents, yeah.
when there's so much going on.
Yeah, no, please don't misunderstand me. I was just, through the Women's Club particularly, I know that there are lots of people who
They love
don't have computers. I don't understand it. I don't know how they function, but
But the ones that do receive
Yeah.
the newsletter, they really enjoy it.
Sometimes I
And they
wish
get
I
a lot of
didn't have.
information out of it.
they're better off.
So am I hearing try something quarterly and mostly in electronic format and then have some publications available in
Right.
places? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'd like to see.
So the question is if you're doing something quarterly that is an electronic format minus a couple hundred at the most getting burned on the hard copy, why would we budget 25,000 for it?
Yeah, you could bring that number down.
Well, it should be budgeted at zero. This is something that staff can put together, especially staff, if we're accentuating our staff with these other decisions, can put together electronically, and then you just burn it on the copier that's right in there.
Yeah, if this is something your admin's going to do, put together.
I agree.
What kind of workload is that?
If we're going to be cutting benefits and like all these other things, that I just don't see where spending $25,000 on a publication that has not even been vetted by staff is a smart thing to budget, especially that amount.
What do you think a copying cost would be? I mean, it wouldn't be zero,
The
but
copying costs are very low on black and white. If I'm doing it colored, that jacks it up. What I'm thinking about more are some Photoshop licenses, an Adobe license, creative
Right.
licenses that the person that's doing is going to need.
maybe a couple $1,000 for the licenses and the copies and,
1,500 to 2,000
yeah.
should cover that.
So why don't we play it big and make it 2,500? Take a zero off. How's that?
That's up to y'all, but I'm just saying,
Oh,
if
that's probably
you're looking
the
at,
whole year?
it would be licenses and then
Yeah.
a few copies, so,
All right.
Always forget about those pesky licenses.
yeah.
I mean, I use a program that you can build all of this in, and it's $14 a month. It's through Canva. That's what I do.
I don't know if the city, the city
Yeah.
has probably
Right,
different.
and usually a commercial activity or something, they
Yeah,
frown upon it.
They stick it, Microsoft sticks it to you.
Yeah, they know. I think it's a good idea. We need to do something different than we've been doing. So this would be a pretty good sized step in the right direction. And
So Penny, you think 2,500 would,
I think that's more than enough. I think I could probably get by with 1,500. But like, it depends on if you want me to run off color copies. If I'm doing black and white copies, it's so inexpensive on the copier, but when you're throwing color copies, I'm paying almost 20 cents a page, double-sided.
I'd say black and white. Save money. They can see it in color online.
Yeah, if they want to see it in color, they can come to our meetings.
Yes.
I like it.
Penny, is it something we
Black and
can,
white will do it.
Penny, is it something we can put out on the splash page too of the,
Oh, of course.
yeah, so we can post it there as well for people.
So Kathleen, just to run a hypothetical here, if we were to save the money from the health insurance, which is around 60-something, if we were to save the part-time, full-time position, which is around 18-something, the 25 down to 4K on the grounds people, and the 25 down to 23K on the newsletter, where does that put us on
I
mill?
missed, what are we doing with the code enforcement?
Yeah, I thought we agreed we wanted it full-time.
Well, I was just running hypotheticals to see where we're at. We can drop that off.
Kind of going with the ones that are, well, right now with those three, I have 113,000. I had an error on my calculation for the parks position. I had the wrong amount of money per hour in there, so that savings is actually 28,900 to the general fund. So we got
28,900.
900. So the three things that I have are 61,400 for health insurance, 28,900 for the parks position, 23,500 for the publication. That comes up to 113,800, which equates into about 1.4 tenths. And I can't figure out how to say that right. I guess it's hundreds.
What's the new rate?
So, yeah, what would that put us at on the new mill rate?
If you take it
All right,
from the
that'll take me a
5.8,
second. That'll
from
take
where
me a
they are, the
second.
5.58.
Well, you're doing the 5.58, and then
Yeah.
you're subtracting 1.4 off there, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So it'd be 5.44. Am I understanding that correct?
She's running it now.
Hard to do this sometimes and not mess my whole book up. All right. Say 113,800.
Yes.
Phil, there's a lot of eyes on me. Hold on.
We are all looking at you. We are all looking, including all our viewers online. Penny, you have the camera on Kathleen, right?
Oh, yeah, here, let me
Yeah, we could go at 5.42 with those three things gone.
5.420.
You only have 7 concurrent viewers on YouTube, and I guarantee 3 of them are sitting inside that room.
Okay, now, just to throw a curveball, city manager, can you match the cuts that we made with your $16 million budget, which is 113.8?
Yeah. If you took that number out, then that gives you the 4.20.
One way to shorten the
the
meeting.
bottom line numbers.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest something similar.
So
You're trying to get down to that.
give them the general fund total.
So
Yeah,
the general
pretty
fund
much.
total budget is 7,870,135 with those cuts.
And that includes all your transfers from reserves.
That's doing a 5.420, and it would return 8,000. We'd have $8,700 coming back in, kind of your buffer.
So the total is
$870,135.
7,135, okay.
And then that's at 5.42 mil.
Yes.
Now, again, just hypothetically, if Kathleen, if you were to take the city manager's match and put it in there, what mill rate does that put us at?
I'm confused.
What do you mean
Cut
by-
another 113,000? Is that what you mean?
That was the question to the city manager.
I couldn't cut another 113,000.
Out of the $16 million budget you got?
It's a $7.8 million.
We're working on the general fund side. The rest of the funds come from utilities and, other kinds of operations. So it doesn't affect the mill rate. Now, if you want to.
We'll just say $8 million then. You can cut that out of $8 million?
Another $113,800?
Mhm.
I doubt it. I think we went through all of the funds and looked at all the activities, and if you want to not do some of the initiatives you guys wanted to do, yeah, we could do it that way. But then why did we do all that work?
Which initiatives is it you're speaking of?
Well, let's take the recycling. There's $77,000 right there. We get rid of that. We could get rid of.
Oh, yeah, that's in the sanitation.
Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of other funds that.
Well, the recycling was an enterprise, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is
But it still
the
passes
budget
to everybody.
is made up of multiple funds, and.
I'm not quite sure. What is the objective? Just to get the millage down?
The millage rate is set. I mean, I can't affect the millage by going into the other portions of the budget.
The goal of my question was to see if we could get the general fund down to lower the mill rate. We're at 5.42. So I was looking to see if we could get it lower.
I don't think with the other things that we've decided to do, we can. I mean, you got salaries going up, we have fuel going up, we got insurance going up, all kinds of things going up. I mean, the general economy is humming along at about a 6% increase clip. For us to cut more, we're going to get way behind that. I just don't see how we could do it unless you want to not do some of the things that we've decided to do.
Right. And that's what the question was, which would be what things?
I'm sorry?
I
Which,
think that's our job, not his.
well, then
He's
I'm
already
curious.
spoken, no, wait a minute. I'm a little uncomfortable with what you're doing here. You're saying we cut 113,800, and now he's supposed to match it. We're all in the same city here.
Right.
I mean, I
was
cut
just-
$160,000 before you even saw it.
Before we even looked at it, right.
So to go back and do another 113,000, I just don't see where I could do it.
Right, so we had a strategic planning meeting where we said, these are the things we want to see happen in our city. We should have been cognizant of the fact that each of those things would cost money. Or,
Right, but we never
Exactly.
got anything back from strategic meeting. We haven't locked any of that in.
but these are all based on what we said at that meeting.
Right.
Then we had our first meeting. No, I'm skipping a step. After the strategic planning meeting, we got all the paperwork and we looked at it and we said these things were, we looked at these.
Mhm.
And what are you calling them? Modules.
Yeah, the
Decision
decision
modules.
Decision
Yeah,
models, yeah.
if you want
And
to cut
we-
the code enforcement position, if you want to cut the police position, if you want to cut the administrative assistant position, yeah, I can get you $113,000. But it would be basically all the stuff you said you wanted to do would have to come back out.
So we've been spending the whole last meeting, that was 8 hours, and now we've been here for an hour and a half so far. And we've cut 113,000, which I thought was pretty good, that we cut that much out of a budget that's already been trimmed. And for you to ask the city manager to now destroy everything that we've spent all this time on.
Oh, no. I'm not asking him to destroy anything, nor would I allow you to say that. That's not what I asked.
Can't not allow me to say anything.
Well, I mean, it's a nonsense statement. I was asking a hypothetical, and that was it. I wasn't asking for any destruction of anything.
Okay. But don't tell me what I can say and what
No,
I
you can
can't.
say anything you want, including false stuff.
Chair, so what's your logic you're trying to get back to what we were at last year?
I was just trying to get as low as possible.
Right.
That was it. This is just throwing ideas at the wall and see if anything sticks and, if it's valid.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're trying to do, and I appreciate that. And if there was a way to do it, I would do it. But we started the whole budget process at the level that it takes 3 votes for. Anything you go above 5.3 takes 4 votes. So it takes kind of more of a consensus. And I just don't know where we would find the funding unless we undo some of the things we've already decided to do by consensus. And the other thing is, asking people to take pay cuts, which is the opposite of what is happening in the economy. I can't attract people. You can go to Buc-ee's and make $15 an hour, and I have positions that don't even pay that. And so it's just, you can't compete in the labor market anymore by doing that. I mean, it used to be able to do that kind of thing, but now you can't. Not in this economy, not in this environment.
I'm all for trying to reduce the millage as much as we can, but by the same token, I don't see anybody out there jumping up and down about providing the level of service that we're talking about providing, which includes, especially through our staffs and the individuals that we have working for the city. I mean, if you want to see people start jumping up and down, let the water not come on, let the toilet not flush, let the garbage not get picked up. And these are the kinds of things I think we're talking about, because we are talking about staffs. And I appreciate the fact that we can try to get down, but by the same token, at the beginning of the meeting, I said, last year, we rolled back because of obvious reasons. And I think it's time to step up to the plate and start putting the city in the position it should have been and that it needs to get to, because we still have a long way to go with the services that we're talking about and the staffs that we're bringing on, these kinds of things here. So I think that we've all done a very good job, and I'm willing to look at more in order to try to trim it down more, but I don't want to make the sacrifices that's going to put us back. I remember the first time I came before this dais here, I was complaining about the water being increased. It was 2 years ago. And I said, why? Why is it going up so high? He said, well, for the last 5, 6, 8 years, we didn't increase the rates because political reasons or whatever, it didn't go up. So now we've got to pay the pauper. And now for the next 5 years, we're still trying to play catch up. So I don't think we want to get in a position where we're trying to play catch up on a lot of other things as well.
Commissioner Bellinger?
I just thought, I kind of looked at it structured a little bit differently. How much the millage was before the decision modules. And looking at last, the rollback number and what it would be if we had the same operating millages last year, sorry about that. If we had the same millage rate as we did last year, we should end up with an extra $350,000 out of, over and above what we had to operate with last year. So that's what I was kind of hopeful, that we could at least come pretty close to prior year's operating millage without the decision modules. So I don't know exactly where that stands because we don't have a whole lot of general fund stuff left in the decision modules.
Yeah, you're up basically about right at a tenth of a mil
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm doing that math right.
over last year.
Over last year?
Yeah.
Over last
Yeah, it's 1.5 mils, thereabout. Or 0.1.
It's not much.
And that's with the modules in it, so.
Yes.
That's 13 cents per $1,000, 13 and a half cents.
One thing that does kind of bother me, and I think it bothers Eric too, because he's said it in the past as well. For instance, we had roads and streets had a capital improvements number of $150,000 last year. And that was for a roof and doing their parking lots. Well, the roof cost about half what they had budgeted for it, which was quite a lot of money. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it came in about half what it was budgeted for. And then the paving job never got done. So that money just rolls back into reserves, right?
But
If it never
there was
got
a
spent,
paving
it just
job
goes
done.
back into
Are
the,
you talking about 1920? Yeah. Oh, I thought they did something, but if it doesn't get, yes, if we don't spend it, then it goes back to the fund balance. If it's paving, then I would reserve it. I would encumber it at the end of the year, and we would have a reserve for paving, but
so you didn't have the paving money for those parking lots coming out of the same fund last year?
I'm sorry, I don't have last year's stuff up in front of me, but you might recall last year was a little bit of a challenge on the budget because we didn't have a city manager and, it was not the easiest budget that I would say I ever was involved in.
Well, there's a difference between paving parking lots, which was a CRA project, versus street paving. Those are totally different things, and how you budget for them are totally different. So the CRA projects got done. The street paving, I'm not sure.
That's what it was.
Street paving got done.
That's what we did. We used the street paving money, I think, for the CRA project or something in the library. I'd have to really.
No, we did some.
So I wasn't here, but I'm just saying there are two
But the roads, we
methods.
put that thin layer of stuff on
Right, we did.
quite a few roads,
but
and
not
especially
street.
over your neck of the woods, actually.
Is Palm Drive,
Micro
Ryan,
stuff.
Yeah, like resurfacing.
Most cities try to set a goal of what percentage of streets you'll do each year and budget for it. But there's really only two ways in Florida to pay for it. One is the infrastructure surtax. The other is, and maybe some part gas tax. And then the other is to put millage toward it. And I'm not sure what the mix of funding was last year because I wasn't here, but that's the typical ways you go about it. So if your goal is to pave more streets, I think that's great. We'd love to do that. But there needs to be a schedule, a program, and a methodology on how you plan that out.
I know, we had it planned, but it didn't get done, so that was general fund money. So now we got better part of $100,000 that we didn't spend last year. Now we just got to wave goodbye to it, and then
I don't know.
It goes
Are
back
you
into a
talking about-
fund. It goes back into a
I
fund.
know, but we can't use, we're not using it towards keeping our millage down.
What do you have there? in the
Does it
fund?
go to reserves or general fund?
It's general fund reserves.
What he's
Okay.
talking about, because so the paving dollars are budgeted with the amount of money that we're collecting from the revenue share.
No, this was not a paving project.
Okay,
This was a parking lot project
a parking lot project.
over at T&D building. They were supposed to pave their parking
Well,
lot,
then
and that was coming out of general fund.
I don't, that I don't know. I'll look on, I'll do some looking while you guys are talking.
I do know
but-
that what we are trying to do is chase some grant money to do the Fulton Street, Fulton Avenue paving, and try to also catch some of those buildings along the way and redo the way that whole sidewalk and drainage process works. And I do know that we are planning that issue out. I don't know what we have sitting available in the budget for it. And I'm at a disadvantage because I wasn't here, so I'm trying to play catch up.
Improvements on roads and street. You're okay. You're not talking about T and D. So let me see what it was.
But that was supposed to be for a roof and paid parking.
So,
Let's see.
Commissioner Bellinger, if you can you just explain to us what it is that you're showing Kathleen, so we all are kind of in the loop? Is this,
It's a page from last year's budget book.
is that is this the capital stuff
No,
that you
it's
have
the
here?
No,
roads
that's
and
general
streets
fund money.
budget.
It's on a general fund worksheet from last year, $150,000 for improvements. It's road and bridge, or streets and bridges, or whatever they call it. But that's Allen's building, or the Public Works
Well,
building.
yeah, I'm trying to get it to
And
pull
they
up.
put a roof on it,
Take a second.
but they got way cheaper than what they had budgeted,
That fiber optic.
and then they didn't do the
All
parking.
right.
But that was all general
So
fund money.
when we had, for this year, we had 150,000, and the budget, the way it was broken down in improvements was 20,000 for multimodal, I never say that right,
Multimodal.
yeah, sidewalks. Parking lot improvements and alleyway aprons. And to date, I'm sorry, we need that fiber optic, things are very slow. To date, we have spent, we were spending money on those parking lots. Frederick, the 5 city parking lots. So I guess, yeah, that's what we were doing with it, the city parking lots. With Frederick J. Blackham.
That's not what you're referring to.
That's not, we didn't use
He
that.
was, Rick's referring to the parking lot for the building. But I believe that's in this year's budget, is it
We
not?
It
didn't
was in
budget.
last year's budget, that's
Well-
what that 150 was. All right, just,
I don't think that's-
I hate to see money that's in the budget one year not be available the next year when it wasn't spent.
But it is available the next year, right? It's not like it goes
Well,
up into
this
the.
is not-
it go back to our reserve.
This is not a use of, we weren't using the paving money to do this improvement, I don't believe. It's a lot, you want me to look at last year's budget, I'm trying.
No, I'm just,
I came prepared
I
to
know.
talk about this when we're working on.
Well,
But basically, if things are not spent, yes, they go back into the fund balance. If it was money that we weren't spending from the paving funds, then I would encumber that at the end of this year. And it would be available for next year, and if we wanted to use it for that case.
I thought the 150 was for the parking lots.
Yes, it was, yeah,
And then-
remember how crazy that was?
Right, 'cause
We were talking about
because we
parking lots, then
it
we
kept
took them
coming up
in,
and it
put
was
them
never getting
out.
done.
Yeah.
So then we finally gave Rick direction to come back with a price of doing the parking lots. And then that was when we started exploring the idea of using the crushed shell, sand, or whatever it was, because I actually took him out and we looked at it. And he came back and he got estimates, and he said, we can get these done a lot less than 150,000 by just using the crushed rock or whatever it was.
that's
that
not
was-
the same thing, Ken.
Well,
That's what
That was all the
budgeted.
city parking lots.
That's
This
what
was
was budgeted.
one
Okay, I know which one you're
work
talking
building
about. Yeah.
over on South Flagler.
Well,
I don't remember that
Why don't we do this? If it's okay with the commission, we'll be happy to put together a memo, kind of taking you through that and where the funds are at. And if you want to do paving next year or a paving project next year, just let us know. And then if we don't have enough funds, we'll let you know. If we do have enough funds, we'll let you know. I mean, a lot of times paving projects are saved 2 or 3 years before, you're ready to go. But I don't have a problem doing that. And I'll also let you know that we are chasing some grant money to do some drainage improvements and sidewalk and multimodal. That's what multimodal is. And we might be able, if we are able to get some of those grants, knock it out, and use the funds that are there for match. So I don't know. We need to do some checking on that and give you back a memo and say, okay, here's where we are, here's what our options are. And if you want something done, then we'll let you know how long it'll take to get it done.
I think I understand what Rick's frustration is that if the money went back into the general fund, then why can it not be pulled back out to use for the parking lot this year? I mean,
Yeah, if you want, if that's an
because
important,
it goes back into the reserve.
if that's an important project to
then
the
it can be
commission,
pulled back
it'll
out
happen.
for that parking lot.
Yeah, it's not, it's the idea that we charge people extra millage to do that project that never got done.
But you've earmarked.
And now the
that.
money goes back in reserves, and we have to
Charge them again.
charge them again. So we're, now, here we are going to be using street funds this time, but it wasn't that way last
Wasn't
year.
it the same money?
But I mean,
Well, if the funds weren't
that's all.
spent, they're there.
That's my point.
And we can roll them into the cost of a new project, if that's what the commission wants to
No,
do.
we're going to need the money for this dumpster enclosure, it looks like.
I think I'll just point out on page 50, which is the budget summary, what we use, when we're using transfers in and those types of things, we are using the money that other people have paid to do the projects. We're not double charging them. You see what I mean? It's like we transfer this money in from the reserves. We're not basing all that money that's being transferred in for projects, capital items. That is the money that's been collected and saved over the years. Maybe the projects didn't get done because we weren't in great shape last year when it came to having a city manager and everything else. So, that's why we're not taxing people again for capital projects. We're using the reserves. What they are being taxed for are salaries and operations, the things that bring service to the city.
And I'll say this too, one of the things that's a blessing here, and that the commission has done a great job over the years, is managing your budgets and managing your costs. And you have, the accountant told you, 9 months worth of reserves. There's a value judgment call that's going to have to be made in this new fiscal year. We have been tasked in the audit to come back with a fund balance policy, which is going to free up a bunch of money. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'll need to study this a little further, but 6 months is 7 months. That's pretty healthy reserves for a coastal town right here on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean in Florida. Maybe we're keeping 2 or 3 months worth of funding back. Maybe that's too much. And then you free that money up to go back in to do projects. So these are the kind of discussions we're going to have in this coming budget year, but we're not ready to do it right now because the auditor just said, hey, you really need to look at this. You need a fund balance policy, and that once we have that fund balance policy, that'll ought to be an automatic tripwire that goes in and says, okay, we have too much, so we got to roll some back into the budget. What do you want to spend it for?
I have a quick question, just trying to find some answers here. In situations like this where we're talking about maybe using the paving projects as an example, do you normally generate, I'm sure you do, you have a report that you generate that shows projects such as this when the money is rolled back in? Is that something at maybe every quarter or every 6 months you could provide the commission or the city manager with that list so that we would know what's actually going to be rolled back over, so that we don't wait until the end of the year to see what was rolled back over? And that way we can make some judgment and some decisions as to how we want to use it before it's permanently rolled back over. Is that something that the commission would be
So
when it's again.
generally, the way that I have done this type of thing is I encumber, not me,
Mhm.
the city encumbers money that we have projects going.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, maybe now that we have Mr. Whitson here, we can, at the end of the year, sit and look at the money that hasn't been spent on projects. And you can certainly encumber that and bring it into the next year's budget.
I think that would help a lot. In that way, we're not looking through trying to rack our memory as to what projects were not completed, what was rolled back in, what's in reserve, and this
Yeah.
kind of thing. It would be helpful to me.
Usually in like October, November,
That's when I do
that's
the
what you do.
encumbrance.
You give
That's
us
when I
a
do the
report of
encumbrance.
This is what's,
Right.
Mhm.
I would
So-
find it
And then,
helpful.
like, on the budget report, which I know I haven't done in a while, sorry. But on our budget report, I do that kind of a cash flow kind of thing. And that's where, in that section, I show you, I list out all the projects and like what's left to spend on them so
right.
that I can get down to, this comes from our city manager, Bernie Murphy. He taught me how to create that. It's called, what they call the rainy day fund. So you can see where everything is. And then, that's,
That would
I
help
think
me a
what,
lot. mean,
I think if I did that, yeah, I think I just don't point that out as much when I go, by the time I get to that last page, I know y'all are falling asleep and going through the budgets, so.
Not this group.
I think that's needed because I think the cities, at the end of the day, with all due respect, Commissioner, you're in great financial shape. And I think the only question is, how much extra do you have available out there that you need to roll into operations, or should you sit on it for, we're sitting right here on the Atlantic Ocean, one of those bad H things could happen any day, and then, you're going to need it. So the question is, it's a judgment call, a value call. How much do you leave in there? How much do you make
Well, we're getting
available?
ready to make that call too, right?
Yep.
Because we're going to be hitting their general fund reserves pretty hard.
Exactly. That's what you're doing
$641,000.
in this budget, absolutely. And what I'm saying is we need to come up with a regular policy that then tells the manager, okay, you have X amount of funds available, so that it rolls in automatically, and then y'all can tell us what projects you need taken care of.
I'd like that.
Okay.
so Kathleen, you're saying that when you give us the quarterly budget report,
That last,
that
I'm going to go back to that practice because I think that feeds into what the auditor was saying about having a fund balance policy.
well, between doing the budget and doing the audit, I'm sure she was a little busy, but.
Yeah.
I have an assistant now, so hopefully things are going to start getting a little bit better, yeah. I have to admit, I feel like I've been running like a hamster in a treadmill for the last year, so.
Yeah.
So
Just
for
trying to
clarity,
catch up.
Kathleen, your encumbered report that you do in October lists out each of the, like, capital projects or other projects, and
The encumbrance is a resolution, and what that is I'm taking all the projects that all the departments have going on that aren't finished on September 30th, and I'm rolling those into the budget. The other report that I was talking about is just a report that's part of the budget report that I give quarterly. And it's kind of it's a report that does a lot of different things. It's showing you the cash balances, then underneath it, it's showing you what's set aside, what we intended to spend this year, basically, for capital projects, debt service, all the things that we've got to pay. So I think that we could play off of that, maybe make it a little different than what, maybe make it more separate and more individualized, and software can probably help me do some of this too.
like
So-
by project, kind of.
Yeah, by project,
Mhm.
Right.
exactly.
Because a lot of times you'll get into a project and, maybe your bids come, and really good. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes you have projects like a lot of these projects that we've been seeing with the water department have been coming in, sorry, you didn't budget enough, But a lot of times they'll come in, you have some extra there, and then, so you have a little bit left here, a little bit left there, you roll it in, it adds up over time.
Are we going to do anything else with these modules, or?
Well, I want to get back to Kathleen, on the health insurance.
Mhm.
Now I know where I got my numbers from. On page, this expenditures page,
Okay.
Pages
it's
Oh,
page
it's up in the
2.
front.
It says budget for the August 24th workshop at 5.58 was 153,000.
On page 2?
Mhm.
Are you looking?
I'm looking at the overview of general fund budget
So
expenditures.
the way I did this worksheet was the first column is what the budget was in the book that you had for the 721.
Mhm.
And then to provide the insurance at that time, we thought it was going to be 64,800. So if you add those two together, you get the $158,000. And then it does look like I know that idea.
And then it came down some because you found the savings
Right,
and.
yes, yeah, oh, that's it, yeah, I didn't net it out, I just kind of made it 60,200 is what it came up with for
So
that.
what's the 153?
That is what the budget is now. Hopefully that will tie up.
That's a cum total of where they,
So
like,
that's where I came up with the almost 2 mils.
oh, I see. Sorry, that was a little
That
confusing.
includes our salary.
Oh, you did the 153? Is that how you came up
Well,
with
it says provide insurance.
Right,
So
yep, okay, I see what you did, yeah.
I still don't understand.
It's laid out a little weird.
I was trying to make it easier. Okay, so if you look at page 59, which is your commission budget, that's where the 153,614 is. So does that make sense to you? I was taking the budgets as they were in the workshop, then what happened during the workshop, and this is how we got to the 5.8. That's how that happened.
Right.
Then the next, the final, second to the last column is additions and deletions that the city manager came up with between these times, and that's how we ended up at 5.5850. So, like, if you look at page 59, on page 2, it says the commission budget is 153,614, and lo and behold, that's what it is. Thank you. I was worried it might not be, but.
It was just a little confusing because it says provide insurance for elected officials, and in that 153 is more than just insurance.
Right.
yes,
Oh, I see.
yeah, that number's
Oh,
always
okay.
made up of other things, yes.
Oh,
Okay, I should have said that this column is the total.
93,000 in the first column included our salary.
Right, that's your
Yeah,
whole budget.
That was the whole budget for the commission.
Oh, okay.
Not just the insurance.
Right.
okay, now I understand.
So, yeah, see, I tried to do something different.
No, because at the beginning it says provide insurance, so this is for the all,
Like, yeah, it's kind of like, this is what, providing insurance for the elected officials, that added $64,800 to the 93, so now you're at 158. And this probably shouldn't have been 60,000, it probably should have been the difference between 64,800 and 60,000, but the additions and deletions by the city manager brought it down to 153,614. So I did make a mistake right there, but,
all right, but at least I understand where that number came from now.
okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
What were we doing now?
We're just jumping around.
All right, while
I'm
we're
not even
jumping
sure if we got
around,
Rick's
can I ask
question.
something else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just for my understanding, in looking at the proposed salary schedules,
Uh-huh,
page 42
42.
and thereon,
yes.
so the basic raise is 2.9? And any of the ones that are higher than that are to make up the minimum
Yes.
wage?
Right,
Okay.
Because it's actually, we're not making up the minimum wage all at once, we're doing it in
No,
phases.
Okay, so the first one, I'm not going to say what position, but one comes out to 7.07, and that's because that position was being raised to $11 an hour or something?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you. And,
Her mom has COVID, and so she had
Oh.
to take that. I'm sorry. Maybe I could help you.
at the bottom of page 42, the cashier is minus 100%, which tells me we're not going to have one. And then we have utility billing clerk. So one is taking the place of, we're renaming it.
Yes, it's a reclassification, I think there. Is that right, Liz?
Okay. Sorry, Liz, I didn't see you back there. Okay.
Yeah, she's just got a different plaque on her door, or on her cubicle. Are we going through page by page now?
Well, I had
What are we doing?
salary scale
She
questions.
had a couple questions about the salary schedule. We're not going through the entire budget, line by line, unless you have like certain.
Code
jobs.
enforcement officer, I'm still a little confused as to how much he or she is going to get paid. That's on page 45.
Page 45, hold on a second.
For which position?
Code enforcement, if we go from part-time to full-time.
That's page 45?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Let me explain let me try to explain what's happening there. We have a part-time code enforcement officer right now on the books, and he will be leaving the city in December. So what we thought we would do is try and hire the full-time in October, so there would be a slight overlap there, and then, that position would then hopefully stay on for the rest of the year. So I don't know how that translated in salaries, but it was basically trying to do that overlap with, from the part-time position to a full-time position.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, but when I look at this, it looks like the current part-time position was being paid $26,520. And so that $7,500 is the overlap when we hire a new person?
Yeah, and it's actually a rate, and if, like you were to run that out a whole year.
And that person isn't only going to get paid $28,600 when it becomes full-time?
No, it'll be 36,000. Because you'll add those
Do
two
you add
together.
those two? That's what I'm
Yeah.
asking. Do you add the 36,864?
That's how I read it.
Liz, I
Put
think
them
that's
both
correct, isn't that?
It's
Yes.
on some other piece of paper, it said
Yes.
36. Okay.
Yeah, and you have these kind of funky situations that are going on that, you have to understand who's coming and going.
Okay. That's my questions about salary.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's wrap up decision modules. Rick, you said you had some thoughts on that? Or you had some other questions or something?
Well, there's other things that are not in the general fund. You want to finish the general fund and then go back through it again with the other funds? Or, because I
I'd
have
like to
some
stick to
comments
the
about
general
other
fund,
funds.
that's the tax rate, if we can settle that.
Well, we've already done
Okay.
that, so.
Well, so the proposed cuts as a sum, so we have the proposed cuts of health insurance, the difference in grounds, and the quarterly news publication as a sum. How do you all feel about those?
I'm
I
good with
thought we
that.
kind of reached a consensus on this.
Well, we kind of went through, and some of them we kind of put on hold to see where it was going to go.
Okay.
I'd like to know for the health insurance, what the millage rate would be if we kept it in.
All right, Kathleen, let's see you start clicking some numbers.
Amelia asked, talk to, see if
Oh, mealy math? We can mealy math it.
You want mealy math?
Mealy math would be much better than Eric math.
It's actually it's around 0.6 of a tenth.
Yeah, if a mill is 79, so that would
It's
be,
0.07 mils. 0.077 to be exact.
So we would go to
So
5.49 instead of 5.42.
That's double humor math.
Now,
What did you
let me
say
also
we were
say
bringing?
this, let me also say this.
0.077.
You could run that number all you want, but if there aren't 4 votes on the dais for it, you can forget it. Because it takes 4 votes to be able to set the millage rate at that level. Yeah.
Anything over 5.3 requires 4 votes.
Well, we're still at 4 votes without it.
Well, and that's kind of a sore spot because we started the discussions before one single module at the highest amount of tax increase for 3 votes before we even got to one decision. Just in day-to-day operations. And that's not a good starting point. I thought that was a very high starting point before even one decision comes into play. Hopefully that made sense.
Not really.
me.
I don't know what you just said.
I don't know what you just said.
Well,
I don't know if we
before-
need a break or we just need to.
Well, before we even got into one decision module, the proposed rate in the budget was already at the 5.3486.
Which meant you had to have.
Before one decision module even was put in.
Correct,
put in
and it
place.
was based on feedback received from the members of the commission on things you wanted to do. I'm gonna be clear on the record about that it's what you told me you wanted to do was baked into the cake right from the beginning, and it was the minimum. I mean, it only took 3 votes to get it, so I was like, okay, well, that's the starting point. If you wanted to start at the last year's rate, you could have directed me to do that, but you didn't do that. You told me you wanted this, you wanted that, you wanted the other thing, so that's why it was at the 5.43.
Right, and this goes kind of back to full circle where I was asking, so in that, what you're saying makes sense. So we had things that we were asking, and that's how it got started at a 5.3 before we even got to a decision module. But what are those things as far as the general fund initiatives? That's kind of the
Things
question.
before the decision modules?
Does that question make sense?
It does, and I would have to break that down and get it to you, but it had to do with services that you wanted to see delivered and things like that. I mean, I could break it down for you. You're asking for a breakdown of the budget at the base level before you even started, and I just have to go back and do some analysis on what those things were, but they were basically things that we had talked about us doing when I came on board.
So what you're saying, if you go back, we're talking about cutting the basic services that we'd initially had in the first place.
Correct. And I just didn't hear any consensus on that. So, I mean, you're talking about going back to rollback, is starting at rollback, and that's not what I was hearing coming in. And I apologize if that was, if I
I'm not
misunderstood
saying
that.
I understood.
I'm not saying
clearly.
rollback. I was hoping we could end up, like I said, before the modules be at least equal to what our millage was last year. But I think we've kind of accomplished that. I don't know how much is left in here. 39.
It's like that game Limbo, how low can you go? And I'm telling you as your manager, if you want certain things done and you have certain expectations, that 5.420, unless you start throwing things out, is as low as you can go, in my opinion.
So going lower is going to, I know it depends on each household, but we're talking about what, $50 a year on the average per household?
That's what I was about to do, is start breaking it down.
Just looking at this one property, their bill at the 5.585 on a property that's taxable value is almost $400,000. That's the taxable value. That's after all your exemptions, that's what you got left, what you have to get your rate charged against. The increase was $148 for the whole year. So that's like $12 a month.
And now it's lower.
And now it's lower. Now it's probably more like $10 a month,
Can I ask you to calculate something real quick, Kathleen?
possibly.
And that's just the things from the general budget, general fund, that are still left in decision modules. What do they add up to be?
The things, we'd have to go over them again.
Well, you got the adjustment in salaries,
Yeah,
39,000 thereabout.
that was like 40.
But we have to do that.
Right.
Just looking for a
That's
number,
correct.
Jane. Then you got adding a full-time code enforcement, it's another 18.6 thereabouts. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not sure what the number we ended up with on the groundskeeping team.
Was right at 200.
General
Yeah.
was 126,000.
Well, those were the modules. When I worked it out, I did it, with everything, the FICA, all that kind of stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, in general.
Okay, you'd have to, all right, set that aside. That's all
Okay.
the stuff you cut.
That's all the stuff I've got, right?
All right, so let's go back
Okay.
and do another calculation with all of the stuff
All
that
the
they
stuff that's
added.
still in here,
Right.
okay, all right, okay. So let's start, we're talking about the salary increase to minimum wage.
Right. And then I think that's all on that
That
page.
it was about $50,000 in the general fund, okay?
Because you got to understand that when you say salary, it's spread over a number of.
I know, and I
different
added up
things,
the
just-
ones that were on your sheet that you said each one had gone up.
Yeah.
And the ones that were in the general fund added up to 39,000, that's what I got. 39,700.
Yeah, but then it affects the FICA and
Right,
all
that's
all
just-
Yeah,
the
it's
rest
got
of
the
it.
other.
Yeah, by the time it's usually,
Okay, I'm
6.5%.
just saying that what I saw to add
Okay.
up that he had written down in
So
this
we're
memo.
probably on the same page.
Then we had to add the full-time, the difference
You have the
by adding the full-time code enforcement.
full-time code enforcement, you had the police officer.
Okay, so the full-time code enforcement, that was 18.5, is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, we got the police officer,
And then the police officer.
62.9.
Yeah, but you had to put in stuff for him, that was,
Yeah, you
it
have to
was
put
like
the-
73,000, let's just say.
Equipment and
Okay.
FICA and all of that.
Okay, so you got the code enforcement, the salary stuff, the police officer, the admin for Mr. Woodson. I think that's about 73. And we cut, let's make it, I want to say 78,000. And we cut everything else because they need a computer and stuff like that.
And then the groundskeeping team, we cut a position, so
Right.
that's a less number.
Okay, yeah, I have to look back.
Yeah, that kind of ends up zeroing out, I think, doesn't it?
Well, when you count the contract.
Yeah, we're just looking for the additional cost.
Yeah.
But what would
I
that
mean,
add
I'd
up
say
to
we'd
be
safe
in
to plug in
millage?
25,000, 20.
Yeah. Go 25, yeah.
25, okay.
All right. What is that up to?
$244,500.
244, 500.
244.5, which calculates to what in millage?
It's 70,000, 80,000 a mil, a tenth of a mil.
Yeah.
79,568, she said.
It's
Around
3.07, 3/10.
3/10, so
Plus
that
a
would put
little
us down to 5.1 before decision modules. I'm good with that.
You're saying 5.1 before decision modules?
Correct, that's what we
Okay.
just calculated.
William, can I ask a clarification question?
Am I right? I mean, did I do that right?
No, you're right.
Okay.
All right, so at the 5.5850, that's an increase, and that's all the decision modules that we would like, that we chose from this one here. That would raise the resident tax bill of the example given by $148. So all we're trying to do at this point is just lower that $148 across the board of, and what did we come up with? That's, just a little bit each month. And so we have already then cut.
Yep.
Okay,
You're
making
up
sure.
about $10 a month
Okay,
in that example.
you just have to break it down so people can kind of understand it, including myself, just layman terms.
It doesn't
Took
need
us
to.
down to 5.1.
No, we'll do that right now, because I can see that one right now.
Decision.
Without any of the.
She's gonna run that number right
Over
now.
$10.
Got it, okay.
That's what I was doing by having her.
Of all
calculate.
the approved stuff.
Yeah, what we just had a consensus on, correct.
Okay.
Just general funds.
So if we went to 5.42, that's going to drop that's going to make that example, instead of the increase being 148, it's going to be $83.88.
Say that number again? That,
$2.88.
Increase over
Increase
last year's mill
over
rate
last year's millage.
On this
In
graph,
the example.
on the graph, yeah,
For the year.
for the year.
Right, which divide that by 12.
$6.84 a month.
Yeah.
I feel like we're splitting hairs over
McDonald's.
tiny things that can make a huge improvement to the city.
McDonald's burger.
One
I
drink.
say we take a vote
Yeah.
and
It's not even a
take a
Happy
break.
Meal.
I vote for that.
Well, all right, so consensus time, where are we at with it? Let's run down the line. Mayor, I'll even include you, even though you're not a vote, but how do you feel about it?
I feel good. I'd actually like to go back and see what the number is per month when you start splitting $6.82 to add that fourth employee back into city landscaping, because that's 4 eyes of code
Well,
enforcement.
let's take it as it is right now, and then
Okay.
we can take a break and come back to it.
I'd still like
We're
to
just doing consensus.
rework it.
Commissioner Bryan,
I was okay with the proposed millage.
Commissioner Bellinger,
No, I like it with what we just ended up with.
all right, Commissioner Mealy.
I think it's perfect.
Are we talking about the 5.42? Okay,
No,
just
the
make sure.
5.4, yes, the 5.42.
Okay.
That's what it ends up being.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
I'm okay with it. And then we can take a break and we can make some tweaks. We can split some more hairs.
Okay.
How long you want to take?
15 minutes?
2 minutes.
I got to air my head out.
We'll do 15 minutes. What do you think? 20 up?
20 of them.
All right. Yeah, just turn your mics off.
Yeah, well, I know it's.
And so we had a consensus. And so right now we're kind of at a point of splitting hairs, more hairs.
We were going to go with, we reached consensus on the 5.
We did. And then,
5.42, I'm sorry to interrupt, just so I'm clear, the 5.42 includes the 3 groundskeepers, the admin assistant for the city manager with a reduced budget of $2,500 for the newsletter, the police officer in his.
23 of the 25. We kept 2,000 in there, right? Or did-
1,500, okay, and then, full-time code enforcement officer, the salary adjustment to minimum, and the police officer and the stuff he needs. Okay.
Mayor Johnston, did you have anything? You said you were, before break, you said you were talking about wanting to talk about some more stuff.
I wanted to go through the rest of the items that would affect the general fund and see if we can trim further.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I thought, on this, hold on, let me just gather. There was some, I had a list here of other items that we had a consensus on at the last meeting, but I didn't know if they could be addressed. There was I know this one was not approved, but it was the grant coordinator. There was the fire truck, that was affected the mill, the new roof of the police department. I still had that list.
They're not.
Fire
general
truck
fund.
doesn't affect the millage.
Neither does the police roof.
No,
Okay.
The police roof is coming out of reserves.
Oh, okay, because here on it, it says it could. That's why I had it in this pile. Okay.
Doesn't mean that we,
Could take
hopefully,
it from
we're
that
still
way.
going to talk about that, so.
Okay.
Go
All
through
right.
the things that don't affect the general fund that are.
All right, well, if
Still
we've
budget items.
done everything that affects the general fund, then I'm done.
Okay, Commissioner Bellheimer.
Yeah, I just wanted to, since we're done with the general fund items and their, decision modules, maybe we can go through the other ones that are in the decision modules.
Okay, which one?
First one happens to be the roof on the police department. Did we get any more feedback on repair versus replacement and all that stuff?
Yes, sir, we reached out to Mr. Tilton, I'm sorry, to come and take a look, see what he could do. And Rick, where are we with that? The other Rick.
Darrell and his older brother, Darrell. So I contacted Mr. Tilton last week. He advised he'd be by Friday or Monday. They're extremely busy, so he came by today and looked at it, even though it was extremely hot outside. He did not give us a written estimate as of yet. But one of the things I asked him is put a guarantee in writing that whatever he does do will keep that building intact and it won't affect the roof for another at least 10 years. He has not provided us with anything since, so.
So we're waiting on that estimate to
So
come
that's
back.
still a pretty good option then. He didn't say it couldn't be done, right?
He didn't say it couldn't be done,
Okay.
but then again, he never did go inside the building to look and see where the damage was on the inside, so I'm gonna ask him to come back, because you can't just look at the damage to that roof from the outside. You can actually see through the roof.
You can see daylight?
You can see daylight through the roof in the police department, over the records department, so. When they come back, I'm gonna ask that they actually go in, pull the tiles, and go and see exactly where the damage is.
And so it sounds like he has some more work to do. So he was just out there today?
Today,
Okay.
right about 2:00.
So that one's kind of a pending thing, I guess. While you're on the subject of the roof, I guess my question would be, we struggle with metal roofs. It is it's a science putting those things on. Extremely complicated, as I found out with my own residents. It takes a highly specialized company for that. That would be the only building in the city that's a city-owned property with a metal roof. Wouldn't a shingle roof be easier to maintain, more intelligent choice, more cost-effective? Even if it has to get replaced, when you have hurricanes, if you lose a couple shingles, that's the epitome of straightforward. Shingle roof is easy to fix, easy to maintain, easy to inspect. The Tilton folks, they if they were to replace that metal roof, obviously, as long as that gentleman's alive, that roof will be considered good. But it's a lot more complex to deal with those. Is that a consideration? It just seems odd why that one building would have a metal roof that we would struggle to maintain versus any other substance.
Yeah, it was designed that way. I don't know anything about the original architect or anything like that. I imagine it was put on there because of hurricane protection, because metal roofs are typically better. But it's a crimped roof construction, which is more difficult to do. And the bottom line is, I'm going to make an executive suggestion that I don't care whether it's metal or shingle. I want a roof on there as soon as possible, because you're talking about the records room. The records, we have legal liability for those records, and we need to address this as soon as possible. You can see daylight. It just needs to be done. And with a backup of work around here, I've been waiting on a roofer for the home that I purchased for 2 months now, and still no roofer. So, I just think we need to make a decision as soon as we can and go forward with it one way or the other.
I just got a question. Matt, what are you doing to preserve the integrity of the records at this point? Because I know they're vulnerable, but I'm sure you're doing something to protect them also, but I'm just curious.
Well, we've moved to what can be moved.
Okay.
Some stuff cannot be moved. And the city staff has done a great job patching it multiple times.
Okay.
And Rick can tell you, we've had multiple folks come out and look at it, and they basically said, if we didn't put it in, we're not fixing it, and they won't guarantee it. And just a food for thought, the LPR project that we've been going over, that project is, instead of budgeting out for the next 4 to 5 years, we paid for that project because of the due diligence of Captain Blanchett this year. We paid for the LPRs and saved the city $110,000. That's a lot of money. It's $89,000 for a new roof. We would still save you money if we got a new roof. And that, again, goes to one person, Captain Lance Blanchett, for doing his due diligence on those LPRs. And they should be up and running before October 1st.
Hey, Matt, while you're up here, you got different sides to the roof. You got the front pitch, you got the rear pitch, and then you got the side. Is that where it's leaking, in the side?
It's in the front of the building. So if you were to walk in where the lobby is, where Susie sits, it's
Okay.
just to the north of there. So it's on the front pitch.
Oh, okay.
And it's got the,
So it's where that gable comes into it.
right. So I'm not a roof guy.
Right.
I'm more of a statue guy. But where that pitch is, it's just to the north of there.
Okay.
Yeah, I still, make my steeples that way, so like used to as a child. That's why that's who church and all the peoples. That's why I got people like Rick.
Hey, I was just curious if it was at a seam.
Yeah, so if you were
It's
to
not in the
look,
middle of the flat section.
no, it's
where-
off kilter just to the north
Okay.
of where the first parking spot is. If you were to go straight to the west, it would be right there.
So it's a shame that after 14 years, we got a roof that leaks that bad, but I'm sure it was due to bad installation.
Yeah.
'Cause it should have lasted.
And
much
apparently
longer.
the company that put it in is no longer in business.
Yeah.
So that's
Imagine that.
part of
That's
it.
why.
There's not a single roofer that's in business from 15 years ago. I mean,
has.
Tilton's probably the only one. That's who we should go for the new one.
And I'll give Mr. Tilton due credit. I actually saw him in Publix last night. And he said, Chief, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to get to see you on Friday. I told you we were busy, and yesterday we were busy because they're doing a roof on North 12th Street. And he came by today and pretty much was under heat exhaustion and sent somebody else out to do it. So I appreciate, Mr. Tilton and his diligence to get out there to get a look. But again, I know he was there about 2 o'clock. And I don't think he really got a chance to see all that needed to be seen for that roof. Because I'm sure that there's, if you were to go in there and look up in there, and Rick can probably speak to it, there's got to be significant wood damage, on there.
While I have them, one last thing, there's one other item that is not in the budget, and it depends on, again, a decision this commission would make, and that is the New Year's fireworks. If you have New Year's fireworks, obviously you have to, we're waiting on the answer from the TDC, but then there's a police element to that in terms of the security that would be in place, and it depends on what hours you set as to how much that will be. You want to walk them through that?
Correct. So I came up with staffing levels based on a 6-hour event or an 8-hour event just for the police department. Not knowing what hours the fireworks would go off. Sunset is at 5:35 p.m. If we were going to do them at 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, midnight, I don't know what the thought process was, but it came down to about $10,000 or $11,000 just in police department overtime. Because New Year's Eve is a city holiday, which means staff is double time and a half. I also reached out to Sheriff Staley because we're going to need additional outside assistance. And while I can't speak for the sheriff, he said there will be costs that are incurred on the part of the sheriff's office. They have operations planned for New Year's Eve because it's a busy night call-wise and DUI-wise. So if they were to be paid through the city, it would be again at double time and a half. So I don't have that in my budget as it stands right now to police that event, and nor does Sheriff Staley.
Okay.
Just trying to cover all the bases while we have.
Yeah, well, we don't know whether we're even going to do that just yet, right?
Exactly. That's why it's
So,
not in the budget.
Is that something that, is it a really, really big deal to make a budget amendment if we were to?
It's not,
Create
but
that
I just
amount?
wanted you to be aware that it's
Okay.
not
Right,
on the.
it's not
And that
budgeted.
would be inclusive of police protection,
Right.
of course.
You don't want it to be a free-for-all? All right, what other questions did you have about that?
Oh, that's it about the roof. I mean, it's, we don't have all the details just yet, but, Matt, do you know if that's steel, Rick, is that steel or aluminum, that roof?
Or galvaluminum?
It's galvalume.
Okay.
And galvalume, you cannot get a warranty within, I believe it's the first mile from the ocean. They will not warranty the metal. And I don't know a roofer who would give you a guarantee on a repair on someone else's roof. The people that I've had out said, yes, we'll come out and fix it. No warranty.
So you're saying we wouldn't even get a warranty on a new one?
On a new one, if you went with aluminum, yes. But a galvalume, you may get a workmanship warranty, but there will be no warranty on the metal.
Well, I wouldn't want to do that again then.
No.
So is this price an aluminum roof or the galvalume replacement?
Aluminum.
You're right, that's important. That's,
Yes.
because if we didn't have that option, then we'd definitely go back to shingle.
And 14 years ago, there were no aluminum roofs.
Mm.
So we couldn't have gotten an aluminum roof if we
Right.
wanted one.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I've been close enough to the building, trade to know the difference.
So, and Rick, I think last time when you were here, you talked about aluminum versus shingle.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit again about what your thoughts are on one versus the other?
Well, you get credits from the insurance companies, you get credits for the aluminum roof, because that wind has a tendency to slide off. Your aluminum panels, they roll form them right on site. You don't have the edges that you have with shingles. Dollar for dollar, I think either way, one is just as good as the other. Cost-wise, it's going to probably run you for an aluminum roof 2.5 times what it will a shingle roof. But if you have the damages on a shingle roof, you have that money that you didn't spend on the aluminum to repair it.
Now, if you had the damages on the roof, could that be filed under an insurance claim?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you put shingles on, you're going to have to take the aluminum off. We're going to have to take it off anyway. Is there any other prep work that you have to do to the roof itself in order to put shingles on after you take the aluminum
That
off?
whole metal roof would have to be stripped,
That's okay.
all the
Yeah,
metal.
But I mean, the panels under that, would you have to put new plywood and all on?
Only where we have damage now.
Okay.
And there is substantial damage on the plywood where the leaks are.
And regardless, you would have to put, new underlayment down.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I'm sure we go with peel
Just
and
a
stick.
moisture barrier.
Okay.
Right.
I didn't know if you had to.
Go with
do
a
that
peel and
as a prep.
stick.
Well, that would be my suggestion.
Okay.
I mean, we've gotten this far with this city being somewhat modest in our spending. So if we get just as good a warranty situation out of shingles, if not better, as Rick just said, why don't we just pull the trigger, tear that roof off, and put shingles on it? That's my take on that.
I'm good with that.
What would be
done
your
good with-
estimate of a cost, like 20,000?
Well, it would be probably half that,
Right.
at least half that. Make sense, Rick?
Yeah, maybe even a third.
Okay.
Yeah, because aluminum panel roofs are not cheap.
I have shingles on my house.
That's the extreme top end for roofing materials, so. That would be my suggestion, that we just.
Mine too.
Put it in the budget, get it done.
I'm good. Let's
And
do
then,
it.
and then you're saving money and
From
having to
reserves.
pull it from reserves. Any thoughts over here, Bill?
Let's we can get on the schedule.
Yeah, if you need a roofer, my guy's only got me 2 weeks out. My insurance company is making me replace a roof, and he said he'll be over there in 2 weeks.
Are we dropping the cost down to like 50,000? It was 89.5, or going half?
You're gonna need to budget in wood repair and, potentially a little bit of
Say
engineering.
50.
So that's probably safe. That leaves a lot of room for repairs. Plus you got ceiling repairs too in there.
Yes.
I don't think there's any engineering involved.
Yeah, it depends on how much is rotted.
No, it just
Yeah.
you replace the wood panels as they pre-exist.
Or if you get trusses,
No,
I would
you
hope
don't
not.
think there's truss damage, do you, Rick?
I didn't see any.
Okay. Let's just put 45 in there and go for it. What do you think?
I agree.
45 would be half of what's already in the
I
budget.
think that's enough.
That should be
Yes.
plenty.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other calls you had on items that were not ad valorem?
Yeah, telemetry system. I still am curious how, this says phase one at $850,000. How many phases would that be?
There's only 2 phases.
2 phases.
One is phase 1 is the radio read, and then phase 2 is to erect the tower so that it's, directed, all the signals feed to the tower, which would be an upgrade to the meters and probably a new power source. So for that communication to
So
take
phase
place.
1 is all the meters?
All the meters, radio read only.
Okay. And then the phase 2, how much is that phase?
150 to 200,000 was what the bid indicated.
Okay. So do we know how that will save the city money?
Well, at this point, it's not so much a matter of saving money as it is the fact that to be honest with you, our system is breaking down. I mean, we have touch read that we're having trouble getting done because it's just so antiquated and the equipment's so old. And I think the way it would save us money eventually is that, you wouldn't have all this training and big transition between the individual reading the meters now and a new person. So you may want to speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about the telemetry as far as the computer side works on it, but I know that you can, see what's going on in the city. Like, it will help us provide, like if we see somebody having really high usage, we'll be able to, notify them faster than just the once a month that we go out and read and we're like, oh my gosh, you just burned through 80,000 gallons of water. So that will be a savings. I think also when we do this, I mean, we're still finding dead meters in our town. So we're going to change out all the old census meters to the Neptune. So that ought to help with some of the,
Yeah,
we have
we will
lots of zero reads.
eliminate
sometimes.
that, and then, of course, then you can tell it's better customer service, because if somebody has a problem, you can say, I've seen some systems where they pull it up and you say, well, your leak occurred between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., and here's how much water was used. I mean, you're going to be able to be more precise about telling people what the problem is.
And then forward-looking to the developments that we are going to have to provide water for. I mean, hopefully it will, if we have the drive-through, that's going to be great. That will save, because if we were still staying where we're at right now, and we would have to hire probably at least one more meter reader to keep doing it touch read, and that's just not the way to go.
In the case of new builds, can impact fees be used to pay for these meters?
I don't believe so.
No.
Because it's not really a capital asset, I don't think so.
Well, we're going to have to buy meters for the development anyway, right?
Right, but we charge the people for the
Yeah.
meters,
During the conference last week, I went by one of the booths, and I don't know if you guys talked to them or not, but it was a company that was promoting the different telemetry meters. The company that we're looking at now, or that we're using, could we have them come in and give the board and the community a demonstration and educate everyone on how they work and the efficiency of how they're actually going to save the city money?
Yes, what I'm doing at this point is I'm waiting on this decision. And then once the decision is made, then I was going to thoroughly vet. Again, I've had one meeting with the company. Now I'm going to go back through and kind of look at everything in writing, what the proposal was, make sure that we get it to the least common denominator, and then, yes, I would be willing to have them come in and show you, because it is just far superior to the way we're doing things right now. The way we're doing things right now, I'd be shocked if we could send bills out 2 years from now. It is that bad.
So, I mean, the company I was talking to, I was talking to them about the learning curve on installation and what it was required in order to have our staff install them, and also talked to them about the maintenance contracts on the software, how it would integrate with what we have and this kind of thing as well. So, I mean, that's the kind of information I think would be very useful for us to understand as we move forward through this whole process.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, the meters that are out there right now, what people don't understand is when meters get old, they slow down. So when you put in new meters, that means you're going to get more accurate readings and your bills will go up. We are losing big time money right now just because the meters are old.
We talked about this 2 or 3 years ago.
mhm.
They kind of agreed and then they didn't.
Well, it's a
Well-
lot of money, and how do we spread that out? I mean, how's that going to affect people's utility bills?
Well, it's not gonna, we don't have to increase rates
These,
right now,
we-
but it's
right.
gonna
This
affect them
next-
if they have a dead meter and then all of a sudden they're getting billed what they
This
should be.
next year, we don't have any increases in the budget. It would just be spread out into what we're doing, and we can absorb it, but it's not like you're going to charge people to put in the new meter. It's just something we need to absorb that cost and do. For our existing customers, it'll be a good deal. For the new customers, we make them pay for
Yeah,
the
I
meter.
understood.
So,
But we have enough in reserves to make this happen without making an impact on our utility bills. That's what you're telling us?
I mean,
I'm got to depend on Kathleen. I don't know, but I'm
Yeah, I
assuming
mean,
yes.
Yes, we do. We do. I mean, we're using impact fees for a lot of bigger projects now too, so that kind of takes it out of the impact and frees up that money to go
Okay.
back into reserves. So it's like if we spend $1 million worth of impact fees, that gives us another $1 million in the unrestricted.
Are there multiple companies out there, telemetry companies, that we're going to be receiving contracts from?
There are, but it's a matter of fitting everything together, because you can't go out and buy a meter and then have the software and the platform that it runs off of do something different than the software and platform we bill with. So the vetting process has already been taken into account, and Larry led that charge
Okay.
with the staff. And all I'm going to do is recheck it to make sure he's right. And then that way, whatever system we buy, we don't have to change the billing software and the accounting package and all of that stuff that supports it back office behind the scenes.
And
It'll
this,
all fit together seamlessly.
and this would not affect anyone's water bill. This is the number one complaint I seem to always get, unless they had a dead meter.
It
and
will
go up.
affect their water bill because they're probably getting water
Right,
without
but
paying for it.
only on a fair reason why, but not for the meter, okay.
You'll know who's got a dead meter.
Yeah.
But you won't know who has a dead meter until phase 2. You have to go through both phases.
After the,
No, phase one,
after
we
they're
don't know.
put in, we
Ray
still
will
got to
be-
read the meters.
You'll know only once a month
Well,
in
we'll
phase
have-
1.
The other thing that will happen is, we have one meter reader right now for the city, and, that person spends probably 75% of her working hours reading those meters, which only leaves her a few days to go out and check the zero reads that we have. So it's going to free up more time for staff to get out there and check these, and we have our quirky city where we have a lot of zero reads because we have snowbirds and things like that, but it's, it doesn't, we do try to thoroughly check it every 3 months.
So if we have one FTE and she spends 75% of a month doing going around touching every meter, and then we put her in a vehicle with the right equipment and she gets to drive around, and we can do that in 2 or 3 days, then we freed up a lot of time to go back and do other things.
But in the end, it'll be done by just, you won't need the person driving around after phase
Right.
2.
Yes, well, after you have the second phase, yes, sir.
And when would be the timeline for phase 2 that we would be looking at?
Well, the only reason I broke it into the 2 phases was because the vendor gave us a choice, and it was going to save the $200,000. So you can spend the $1 million right out of the gate and not even have 2 phases, if that's what you want to do, or we can do it in the 2 phases and can spread that out over a year or 2, maybe 2 years.
Not leaning one way or the other, but is the money there to complete both phases at once?
Yes. I was trying to be conservative in how to spend the funds.
And this could potentially save the customers a lot of money too, because if you got a snowbird that's up in Virginia somewhere and they have a busted water line in their house,
Yeah.
then it's going to alert us so that we can tell them you have a problem.
Correct.
Instead of them coming here like someone did recently, said, I got a $2,000 bill.
Yes. So the conservative way is to go in 2 phases. The all-in take full advantage of the technology is to just spend it all and do it now, all at once. And then the contractor puts in the meters and does the change out of the actual meters, because there's a piece of equipment that goes on it that sends the signal and communicates back and forth with the tower or the radio read.
And all the meters be replaced in 1 year?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It took us like 5 years to do it the first time. We did it back in '05.
Yes.
So what is and I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions.
That's all
So
right.
what is the difference between phase 1 and phase 2? Obviously $200,000, but
Phase 1 is setting up the meter system to where you ride by on the street and you pick up a radio signal. That's called the radio read. Phase 2 is you erect a tower and you set up the meters to send a signal automatically back and forth to the tower.
You're getting real-time
Yeah.
reads in
Then you
phase
could do
2 versus
real-time
once a
read,
month
yes.
driving
Right.
around with a truck.
Correct.
And it's with phase 2 that we would get to the point where a person can be notified. Now is the
Correct.
time.
Correct.
You've got to
Yes.
do that a week now.
Otherwise, it would be something you would catch on the cycle if you did radio read versus a tower read, which would be anytime you could just push the signal and read it.
now with phase 1, would it still, for our FTE, would it still be a lot faster? Because now she's not taking a wand and reading each meter versus driving down the street?
Correct,
Yeah, 10 times
Okay.
faster.
correct.
So maybe she could drive twice? And then we'd still have 2 readings.
Then I'd have to bill you every 2 weeks. I don't know.
So if we spend
Well,
all
yeah.
the money in 1 year,
Uh-huh.
what are we doing to our reserve spending?
Well, I did not really pull the reserves together for this. I should have probably done that, but I know from just, looking at how things have been going over the last few years, our base fees now are generating quite a bit of money, and that's helping, I'm no longer highlighting that number and saying, look at that unrestricted reserve that's at 400,000. No, I would say we're more like 1.2 million now. And, it's, some money coming in all the time, so I don't think it, if we did this, I think it would be the right thing to do.
Do it all at once?
I would do it all at once, but I'm the finance director, so.
Yeah, you know that I'm good on reserves, and
Yeah.
get us to a point where we
Right, I know, we worked hard to build that, but.
That's why I was a little more conservative.
Yeah, I like the idea. Unless they're going to give you a super discount by
Yeah.
doing it all at once,
Right. and
which I
that-
sort of doubt. But,
Exactly, and I could sit and negotiate a little bit, but the way most cities do it is in a phased
Okay.
approach because of cash flow and because you want to test the technology and make sure it's right before you go all in.
We may not be able to do it labor-wise anyway, right? That's a lot.
No,
of
they provide the
They're doing the
labor
labor.
to put in
Cool.
the meters. I would never take on
I was wondering.
that.
But it took
Yeah,
years. It
yeah.
took
We
years
could
for
never
us to
do
do
that.
that.
It would have to be contracted.
Good.
Yeah, it's part of the price.
I'd really like to know what that fund balance is.
When
You
would
said
we,
somewhere around 1.2?
Yeah,
You're
I
guessing?
can figure it out this week and email it to y'all. I can take some time and do that. I think I might have a small break here where I could get that done for you.
would we look at phase 2 for next year? Or when would we be looking at phase 2?
What I would recommend is that if you said, okay, let's go with phase 1, that we would get that up, get it going in 1 year, and then go back and look at the next year, say, okay, do you want to take another step or wait a year before you go in? But it's going to be in a 2 to 3 year period.
It might take a year to see if it's really working the way.
Exactly. Yeah, because you got to work all the bugs out and all of that. So I feel like it would be best to go phases and then, probably have a goal of a 3-year goal. Like you would have the whole system changed out within 3 years.
Are there any grants that the new administrative assistant could find to help cover
No.
this cost? No?
No.
Okay.
This is, I've really tried to look, and this is considered a cost of of having the system. And
Larry
there
told
isn't
us
any
that
grants there.
the meters, we could not, but the software, we could. So,
Yes,
and
you might
he
could pay-
mentioned, he mentioned the water district.
Yeah, the software, you could get a piece of that, yeah.
So that might be a piece of that 850 then. Because, the meters are useless
Yeah.
if you don't have the software, right?
That's true.
It's probably 150.
So maybe that's something we can ask St. John's for.
In fact, that would be to St. John's advantage to help us with that, because it is, we want to keep accurate records of the water use. So that's really up their alley, and that window opens in January.
Well, I'd be willing to change my vote on this if we keep at least $250,000 in our reserves and go after the money for the software. Because Larry felt pretty confident that that could be accomplished.
I will not, and I'll tell you why. For 4 years, I've been asking to have somebody come before us and do a pro forma on estimated real savings. We keep saying that this is going to save us money because we're not going to have our folks who read meters go around and do that. And we say our meter reading person spends 75% of her time reading meters right now. If that's a $50,000 a year job, it's 75% of that. And then that would get reduced down if we went to a communications-based system, which costs $1 million. We would reduce that labor that person spends down to a quarter of that. So your savings is maybe at the most $20,000 a year to purchase a $1 million system. And if we have old meters that are reading slow, then the other option, and keep in mind, I'm not totally against telemetry. I'm totally against voting for a $1 million project based on a hypothetical pie in the sky. It might work, it might not. There's no data that has ever come before us saying this is what it'll save you. Here's your estimated cost of meters that are zero reads. Here's what we're losing. Here's the dollars attached to those gallons. Nothing has ever come before us and ever been presented. And you just don't make decisions based on things like that.
I totally understand that, but having done this before, seen it done before, I can have that information presented as part of the feedback to this board. Will it be a dollar for dollar ROI? No. But you are losing money.
Mm-hmm.
There are many zero reads. There are many meters that are reading slow. So you are losing money. The amount I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you what other systems on typical average, do, and they can actually give you data on other systems they have done and what they found in other systems, which you could, translate as far as a
Right, you
percentage.
can extrapolate that and
Yes, sir.
turn it over to this city.
Yeah,
Right.
and I could have that information for you.
Yeah, in this city, it is unquestionable that this city is losing money with zero reads. My business was a zero read for 2 or 3 months. I have no idea how on earth it went that long, because you read them once a month and a business isn't using zero water, especially one that sells fountain drinks. But that's about $2,000 a month in water billing that my own business didn't get. And I was shocked when Alan came by. He's like, hey, you're zero read for multiple months. I was like, why was it multiple months? But that's irrelevant. But I get it. We're losing money. But the thing is if we're gonna spend $1 million, at least how long will it be until this system has the ability to pay for itself between labor, water loss, and billing and stuff? At least give us some type of idea. I cannot make $1 million decision based on a strict hypothetical, because that doesn't work. And that's the,
I totally understand that. What you're saying makes a lot of sense, but I can tell you from having done this for years that it is going to be a big number, and I can have the vendor explain what other communities have experienced has been, and then, like you say, you just have to extrapolate.
and that's fair.
Well, I can tell you, it goes the other way too. Because my personal home, just 2 years ago, we were overbilled by $600 because the meter was reading the other way. And I just happened to pull all the bills out because I keep copies of everything. And I started looking at them and I said, this is not right. So I came down to the city and it took them 2.5, 3 weeks to actually figure out what was going on and had to actually reimburse me because they were overcharging me. So, I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, it's a possibility that some of our customers are being overcharged as well.
It does. It's rare, but it does happen, absolutely.
And I think the other thing we have to remember too is that we're losing water. And that's a very important.
St. John's cares about.
Yes. Florida, you can't afford to be losing water.
Well, this is going to probably take some time to, I mean, and, you know, I understand exactly what Chairman is talking about, because we usually do make decisions based on numbers and feedback, and this is something that will probably take a year or two to be able to get the exact or very close numbers as to what the meters are losing, and that would involve actually going out for probably every single meter to see whether or not it's accurate, if it's reading slowly or fast or whatever. I mean, is there a possibility we could do some sampling or things of this nature in order to come back in a reasonable amount of time? Even if we continue to just move on, we could have some data to come back.
Well, and honestly, you don't even have to do any sampling. We have a known number currently of 0 reads, and it wouldn't be hard to just simply look at the data and go off previous history, and like William was talking about, use other municipalities as a case study. At least that way we're getting something where we can make a good decision, other than we think and hope it would work.
You could, I mean, St. Augustine, just before I left there, they converted completely over to telemetry, right there where I was living. And John Reagan, who is the city manager and used to be the public works director, would be a resource that you could certainly tap. I speak to him a couple of times a month. So, I mean, that's a neighbor right there that we could actually talk to.
Yeah, if again, I was not going to invest a lot of my time until I knew this board was serious, but if you're telling me you would consider it, I can have this presentation back to you in 60 days. And I'd be willing, it's that important to me to get this issue resolved, because I feel like we're not only losing water, but we're losing a lot of revenue. Yes, there are those cases where, you know, it may be going the other way, but those are rare. And so I really feel this that important to fix our cash register.
So in the interest of being able to move forward, could we approve this with the caveat or with the conditions that you can come back in 60 days, and if we don't like what we look at, we can always put the money back in the bank?
Well,
absolutely, and I won't sign any I won't do anything. I can have the presentation, the data, the information in front of you in order to make a decision in 60 days.
Well, and just to be fully blunt, y'all can approve it right now, even with one person opposing it. So it's kind of.
I mean, I just like to get.
Right.
I like to have full disclosure with all the information, so that we all are on board with what we're doing.
Yeah, and I don't want you to think I'm against it. I'm only against the decision and dollar value without the data. That's it. And I'm all for it. And the sooner we could do it, the better.
And I totally understand and respect that. What I'm just saying to you is, having seen this movie in the past, I can assure you that it will be beneficial to the community. And let me go and re-vet this, make sure that all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted before it comes to you. And then if you like it, then you can say what you want to do at that point, or not.
And how do we handle it with the budget in the meantime? We put in the 200,000 or whatever
We put in the whole amount. We
Yeah.
did put the whole amount. We had $200,000 that's coming from this year's budget because we created it as a reserve last year. So, yeah.
So we put in the whole 850,
Mm-hmm.
and then if we don't like what we see, we.
Yeah, we would never, we don't normally do a purchase of this magnitude without
Right,
bringing
without-
Yeah,
something
so,
forward.
yeah, you're
you
not-
know?
Yeah, my limit's $25,000, so there's no way I'm signing off on this.
It would have to come back before us, before the money gets spent.
Absolutely.
Absolutely
even if it's in the
correct.
budget.
And a contract would, and everything would have to be nailed down,
Sounds
absolutely.
good to me.
Okay. So you need a consensus vote?
Sounds like we got it.
Yeah, just consensus is good enough at this point.
I got mine.
Okay.
That's all I had on that list, Eric.
All right, anybody have anything else? Budgeting.
Outside of this?
Well,
Are we gonna go into the utility funds or what is it?
yeah, that's a whole nother, number, yeah.
The only,
I'm concerned we're done with it.
This would be anything concerning millage rate.
I thought we were done with millage
We
rate.
did all
Okay.
that.
Or anything, we'll go anything other than stormwater fund, how about that?
Okay.
And do you have
Um,
anything?
Pier fund.
We have recycling and all that. We are done with the general funds.
That's the word I'm looking for. Anything in general fund?
Yeah, anybody else have more things to talk about on this? Okay. So then,
So we are done with general fund.
My questions got answered along the way.
What do you have? Is this general fund?
pier fund.
All right, but we are done in general. Everybody's done in general, right? Okay.
I thought we were before break.
Me too.
Well, we have a way of making things
Well, I
long.
mean, telemetry wasn't general fund. This dumpster enclosure thing,
Pier fund.
I'm kind of in the same situation we were just in on the last item. We haven't seen a thing as far as what $500,000 is going to create. I mean, we got a memo from you recently telling us it was going to be twice as much as we thought it was going to be, but now we're at 500,000 for a dumpster enclosure. And-
Okay, you're talking about the funky pelican.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about the funky pelican. $500,000 for a dumpster enclosure, it's just, I'm having a real difficult time with that.
I
Without
am
knowing
too.
any details or never seeing any drawings,
I
anything
am-
whatsoever.
I am too. I am waiting on that information. You want to help me out with this, Rick? He's been on vacation, and we're waiting for the drawings to come back, and this is his estimate based on lumber prices?
Yes. Joseph Pizzulli is on vacation. He assured us that when he returned, he would have drawings ready and some kind of a number ready for us.
So the 500,000 is what he told me before he went on vacation as a placeholder. That's where it came from. And I've got the problem of, I got a budget, and I got to deal with what I got. And so I just put the number in there as a placeholder, understanding that it could go up or down, hopefully down, and I'm waiting on the details. So I don't have them yet.
Well, doing a placeholder in an enterprise is not catastrophic.
It's $500,000 for a dumpster enclosure.
But then, no, it's a placeholder. That's not what's budgeted.
I have to have a number to pass the budget. I mean, I have to have
Right.
something in there. I can't just come back later on and
All right,
say,
well, it's going to be another one of those that has to come back in front of us
well,
again.
of course it will. Absolutely. I'm not going to sign
I
off
hope
on
it's
that.
nowhere
Oh, yeah.
close to that.
If it's over 20,000, it's gotta come to us.
Exactly. If it's over 25,000, you have to see it anyway, so.
If you haven't been over there to look at it and walk under that area,
I've been over there to look at it.
I'm not a builder, but I can tell you what. it's not just a dumpster holder, it's part of the main structure of that building. And what I'm afraid of is if we do get any kind of a hurricane, the whole darn thing is gonna be gone.
It's not part of the same structure, is it, Rick?
Yeah.
It's separate structure.
Is separate from the
From the-
restaurant,
from the
yes.
restaurant.
But we have had a price of 1.2.
Sell it.
Yeah.
So the 500,000 didn't sound too bad to me.
It's a dumpster enclosure. I just can't get over it.
That was the
That had the gold
dumpster.
trim on it, but.
Yes.
I can build 2 houses for that.
That was the dumpster enclosure and the little expansion for the restaurant, 1.2.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
with
the
that.
expansion, yeah.
Okay.
Or the expansion
paying
is
for the
on the
expansion.
table.
Yeah, there's no expansion in this, right?
No.
But isn't it more than a dumpster enclosure? Aren't there pilings that have to be
Yes.
replaced and it's all underneath?
That's all
So-
part of the dumpster enclosure, yes. The pilings, the concrete decking, yes.
Yeah, because it's Band-Aids holding it up right now.
Yep.
I say close it and walk the dumpsters across the street. I'm serious.
We literally have
Serious.
pilings suspended from the decking for the enclosure.
Oh, I have no doubt. That We've known it needs a new one for 4 years now, right? But
It really is, and it fell on my watch, unfortunately.
yeah. So
That
that's
should have been done a long time ago.
that's a big hit for our general fund reserves.
Is a dumpster enclosure part of the lease?
That's where the
That I
money
can't
would come
answer.
from, right?
I'm
Because
sure it is.
It's not something that the pier fund will ever be able to pay us back for.
Okay.
We also have all of our electrical equipment
know.
inside that
I'm just-
enclosure.
I was just trying to make light of things that
So that's money that's coming out of the general fund reserve that we'll never see again.
Well, I wouldn't say you would never see it again, but the ROI is not good because it's, you have to take a look at what percentage the lease pays of that, and it's probably small.
Well, that's.
But he's paying a lease. He's paying a lease,
I know,
and he's making money.
but his
so-
money goes into the pier fund, which we're behind on, or 52,000, we gotta go into the reserves to make it whole, right? So,
We have to
Yeah.
pull from general fund reserves to pay for the pier because it loses money.
Yeah.
In this budget that we're talking about,
500,000, so.
in this current,
That's
this
what I meant by
budget right
never
here,
seen
we're
it.
pulling $558,000 from the general fund. Without, if we took the dumpster out, it would be 58,000, but yes, we're still pulling, and that's banking on the pier having a full year of revenues. Of course, we are going to revisit that at some point, increasing the fees to go out on the pier.
$50 for a walkout.
That's it. I think it was like 500, I think it's like $537 a day for the insurance.
Yeah, the killer in the pier fund is the insurance.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And
Because the
hopefully, if we get the new pier built, the insurance comes way down because it's concrete and we get more people that would insure it. Right now, there are 4 firms that insure a wood pier, and they are sticking it to us. If we go to the new concrete pier, that cost comes way down, and then we can lower our costs as opposed to on the trajectory that we're on right now. So there's hope in the future, as long as we don't have more hurricanes and COVID and all this other stuff that's been killing the cash flows. So,
What else do you have for?
That's it, that's what I wasn't happy about.
All right.
So it's a placeholder, and it's something that'll come back in front of us, and we'll be able to see what it is and
yes, sir.
go from there.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. What other heartburn items we got? Jane, did you have any? Anyone have anything in this binder? Or binders? Any red lines anywhere?
The only thing I have is on the stormwater, and that has to do with the study of Mead and Hunt, but we're going to be taking care of that because I will be meeting with I'm meeting with the engineering firm here in another week or so, and the only thing is it was not included in their study as far as addressing possible funding. So, but that's something that's going to come up again, so I'm good there.
Well, I assumed you put it in this package because you wanted to talk about the
Yes,
stormwater costs?
The only issue in my mind about stormwater is there was a proposal to lower the fee a quarter. Whether you wanted to do that, A. B, whether you want to keep the fee the same. C, whether you want to increase it, knowing that there are other projects out there and things that haven't been handled. We put all the projects in that we are aware of at the moment, and we are always chasing grant money. And I've got to tip my cap to Rick and Lee. They're doing a good job, and then, working with the engineering firms, they're helping us. So if there are things you want to see happen in the stormwater fund, now's the time to address them. Otherwise, once we set the fee and set the schedule and the costs, we're baked in for the next year.
I'm not in favor of lowering it. I'm not in favor of increasing it, mainly because we're still in the study, stages here. So, if we lower it, it's always harder to go back up than it is to come down. I'd rather have enough money in there and say, we don't need this much, which in fact we may actually need more considering the projects that I see in here now.
We are way lower than other jurisdictions on our stormwater fees. That's not unusual for a smaller community, but I just wanted to make sure that we had this conversation and you all were aware of that. And if you wanted to leave it the same, or whether you wanted to drop it a quarter, or what you wanted to do with it, I just didn't know what your feeling was.
I would say stay flat.
Yeah, I'd leave it alone.
We just keep it at the 950.
And as far as what you have projected to start doing, I like what I'm seeing. So talking about starting with Palm Island subdivision and then going to other stages along the way and taking care of things that are already built, and then next year getting into Lambert and getting that next phase done down there. So I like what I was seeing as far as projected projects.
Okay. It'd be more flexibility if you chose to leave the fee at 950 versus dropping it a quarter.
And that the study, I think, was worth the effort.
Okay.
Because
You don't see doing all this.
No, it would take a couple of years to do what you have on the table right now. And then what we're going to do is we're actually, I was going over the language today of a grant request that's going to go into DEP to do a seawater sea level rise assessment. And from that assessment then would spin off other projects that we could ask for grants for. So this is going to be a long-term process.
and stormwater's a good probability there's going to be something out there.
Exactly, and there's that pot of money under the sea level rise that the state of Florida has allocated, and then you have another pot of money probably coming from the federal government under infrastructure. Some of the funds from the American Rescue Act could be spent on stormwater also, but they're not ranking as high as, other projects with water, sewer, and things like that. So when you see the plan come back in front of you, you could make different choices, but the task force that we've gathered and all of the projects we're vetting so far, stormwater is on there, but it's not ranking as high as some of the other needs that have been identified that could be funded.
When we were talking to Renner and he's saying about all these, all this water money out there for all different kinds of reasons that there's money for. And you had a deadline to try and get some requests in?
Yes.
Did we ever see that? whatever it was you asked, or?
We submitted a
requested?
list in July, and we're submitting this one in September, and then we'll gathering another list for January. So yes, whenever I get the September list together, we can send everything that we've sent in so far.
Okay, and is some of that stormwater?
Well, if you consider sea level rise stormwater, yeah.
Okay. That certainly affects it.
Yep. Because what is happening out there, as I said, is we've had all of this rain. It's raising the water level, the water table, and then you have sea level rise and intercoastal forces pushing back from the ocean, and there's nowhere for the water to go. So it's all interconnected.
Every way it can go is up.
So what I'm hearing then is leaving the fee flat at $950, and you like the list of projects, and then we'll just kind of see what happens on the grant front.
That's
All right.
me. I
Well, that's-
didn't hear anybody else say anything.
So consensus on leaving it flat? Do we have a consensus?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Nobody's for going up or down? Everybody's flat?
Yeah.
Okay, we are flat.
All right,
We're a flat group.
good.
Flat broke.
Flat-footed, flat Stanley.
All right.
Damn, so
Flat
we're
broke.
done.
Okay,
What
so
do you got on the agenda?
is there anything else on any piece of paper that any of you have?
And if you get to that point, we need to call a special meeting to consider the health care contracts. So,
Okay, so I hear nothing else.
Okay, all right.
I don't see anything for public comment. I would like to do a public comment. Are you all okay with doing a public comment?
Yeah, they sat here all along,
All right,
absolutely.
so, hold on, let me get this out here. Would any members of the public wish to speak on anything that we discussed today? If you can, please come up and state your name and address. Oh, he sells that?
Yep.
See, I thought y'all were members of the public.
Darn, we were feeling so good, too.
The gentleman in the lime green shirt, do you have anything? All right, so we're,
Public comment.
I'll get a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I just want to make sure you have item 5 on here is the mill rate, and I recorded consensus for 5.42.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, and so we have,
Motion to adjourn.
all right, we are adjourned on that. Next meeting,
next meeting on the budget is September 9, first reading.
I do
And
not have it.
what I will do is put everything together now that it's finalized for your review and consideration.
okay, Rick, can you give that to the mayor? All right, so nobody needs any quick break before the next meeting, right? We can go ahead to the next
Yes, I
meeting? All right,
Didn't make it to the mayor.
No, didn't make it.
Nope, you're good, I don't need it.
It intercepted.
that's yours, Mayor.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, if I have 5 chocolate chip cookies, you can have 2 of them. All right, special meeting of the Flagler Beach Commission. Today is Tuesday, August 24th, 21. It is 4:49. This meeting will be continued until all items are complete. We'll call this meeting to order. This is for approving the fiscal year 2021-2022 Health and Dental Care Contract City Manager.
Sir, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I'm going to ask Liz to come up and just briefly highlight the changes. As I said, the health care is a huge number in our budget, and we started out with a 9% increase request from our carrier, and it took me about that long to reject it, and we went back to the drawing board, and we are in at a proposal of 3.8%. With a small supplemental contract to help mitigate some of the changes that had to be made to get the savings down to that percentage. So with that, if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like for Liz to kind of walk you through that briefly, and that way you'll have a sense of the contracts that we're asking you to approve.
All right, Liz, sense of contract.
Okay, well, as Mr. Whitson said, our renewal came back extremely high. We have three healthcare plans. Our base plan came back at almost 9% increase. We did some changes to plan design, changing out of pocket, not co-pays for certain things, differences in co-insurance. It's some changes for the employees, not a little bit more out of pocket for co-pays with primary physicians and specialists. So some changes there. But on the flip side, to offset that, we're looking at gap insurance. And gap insurance comes in different levels. We were looking at a level, and that would kind of make up the difference for the employees. This would be an insurance that the city would pay for the employees that were on our health care. To offset the changes in plan design, this gap plan would pay if you're in the hospital for more than 18 hours, admitted for more than 18 hours, they offer a benefit up to $1,000. They reimburse the employee. There's reimbursements for co-pays. For physician's treatment for up to 5 visits, they reimburse $50 per visit. Something to offset the difference in co-pays. They offer benefits, reimbursement for emergency room visits, x-rays and labs, outpatient surgery. So we thought that came in at a much lower price, and it would offset some of the out-of-pocket costs associated with the change in plan design. So that's where we're at. Yes, we did get a savings. We can go from the 8.8 increase down to the 3.8 increase, but with this plan, it would really, actually, in some ways, even benefit the employees, where they would be able to make up the difference in plan design. We thought this would probably be we could save money, keep costs the same for employees, and if the city paid for this for all employees, even the employees that took the other plans could also benefit from it also.
The approach here is buy ourselves a year with this effort, then continue our conversation with the expert consultant we brought in. And I had lunch with the city manager of Palm Coast and the county administrator for Flagler County, and they were all in terms of cooperating with us and comparing prices and working together to maybe do something in the next fiscal year to try to help drive the cost down even more, because the more we can all work together, and maybe we could find a way to open a joint clinic or something to help our costs. I mean, we're trying to buy time to give us an opportunity to do more homework to figure out how to drive this price down, because it's just impossible for us to keep going up 8 and 9 and 10% every year and offer services to the citizens, because it just eats into our budget so much. So that's the strategy.
So this is already in what we just approved, right?
Yes, sir.
So you just need a motion.
I want, yes, an agreement to move forward with the contracts.
With the change of.
Yes.
Yeah.
With both it's the Florida Healthcare, our other benefits, the dental with Florida Blue, and our life insurance policy, that was a 0% increase. Everything was the same on that. So this is to approve a 1-year contract with that Florida Healthcare with the new plan design, and with American Fidelity to provide the gap insurance for the employees that elect coverage under our health plan.
I'll make that motion. I saw you over there typing, so I felt I was pretty safe.
Jane.
All right. Roll call,
You
please.
said it well. Thank you, Liz.
Commissioner Bryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Bellhumor?
Yes.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes to the motion. Motion passes unanimous. All right, and is that for both the dental and the supplemental?
Including the gap in that.
Okay, city
Motion to
manager, do you have
adjourn.
anything else?
I do not, sir. Thank you all so much for your dedication and your time.
Thank you, sir.
And yours too.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All right, we are adjourned.
Good grief, everybody said motion to adjourn. It's up there.
I'm gonna say it
You
too.
switched
Motion to
from
adjourn.
Bears to the White Sox. I saw you were.
I got switched. I'm actually not a White Sox fan. See if anybody came.
I was paying attention.
Well, it's way quicker than I thought it was gonna be.
Me too.
Yeah,
I'm happy about that.
I was pretty